Part 19. Restarting the Myth. Author, Feng Chao Huang. Chapter 181. The Moonlight Church's largest stronghold in London is a library. The Life Alliance is the same. No matter how big or small the stronghold is, they all like to use the library as a cover. This library is next to a busy commercial street, surrounded by a large number of mobile people, and has an excellent geographical location. When Wayne got out of the sewer, Mona had already arrived at the door of the library. She was assigned the task of placing the play. She hadn't seen her master for many days. When the task was settled, she smiled and walked over with a gust of fragrant wind. Women dress up to please themselves, and just added perfume. What's going on? What kind of devil is this time? Wayne walked into the door of the library and raised his hand slightly. Mona took it upon herself to embrace him. Just looking at the back, they are definitely a couple who have just fallen in love. Looking at the front, it's a sister-brother relationship. The specific situation is not clear at the moment, I just know. Mona told the cause and effect, and Wayne nodded secretly. It is worthy of being the number one force in the God's chosen continent. Even if it has been weakened by the version, it is still well off and was the first to notice the abnormality of the Ministry of Magic headquarters. Wayne thought a lot on the way here. The Moonlight Church was ambushed repeatedly, and the attackers were all from the Ministry of Magic. Now the church base lost contact, and the Ministry of Magic headquarters was wiped out. It was obvious that the traitors began to close the net. He did not think the attack was related to the devil, but Mona swore and cited the evidence of the cross of St. Paul's Cathedral, which forced him to overturn his previous guess. A legendary wizard of the Ministry of Magic was controlled by the devil. The legendary wizard cooperated with the devil, and both sides got what they needed. The legendary wizard made a deal with the devil, making it come down as a chess piece. There are three possibilities. There are two main enemies, the legendary wizard and the devil. Speaking of expelling the devil, he had to admit that he was professional in this regard. Two devils were turned into hell jokes by him. The two walked into the library quickly. The hurried footsteps were out of tune with the quiet reading atmosphere. A nearby scholar pushed his glasses and signaled the two to walk more lightly. Wayne nodded apologetically and looked around. He did not find the staff of the library, that is, the members of the Moonlight Church base. He narrowed his eyes slightly, and his chaotic and complicated thoughts spread out. The gray haze that could not be detected by the naked eye enveloped the library, making every reader feel uncomfortable and produce negative emotions of fear and depression. They put down their books and couldn't wait to walk out of the library. Ordinary silver mages can't do this, but Wayne can. He merged with the Book of Greed and became a source of radioactive pollution. He only needed to leak a little breath to affect ordinary people around him. With all his strength, he can even affect the thinking of gold mages. Like Philomena. That night at the Capitol Hotel, Philomena's body and mind were contaminated by the flesh and blood of the star beast. If nothing unexpected happened, she would be an octopus monster for the rest of her life, and the forgotten prison would be her final destination. Wayne took her contaminated flesh and blood, faced her contaminated mind, and used himself as a radioactive source to impose a second contamination. Wayne repeatedly reminded Philomena not to forget her appearance as a human being, in order to awaken Philomena's will and let her reshape her twice contaminated body. Without this process, it is really hard to say what Philomena would look like. The biggest possibility is that Wayne's pollution ability is greater than the flesh and blood of the star beast. Philomena's flesh will imitate Wayne's appearance in the subconscious and become like him with him as a template. This is a replica of star pollution, and there are many examples like this. The Lord of the Void was polluted by a huge amount of knowledge, and the members of the Earth Center Church were polluted by the Lord of the Void. The believers of the Sea God were polluted by the Blood Tyrant. From another perspective, this process is also called evolution, and there are more examples. The elphization of the Life Alliance, the angel root of the Heavenly Father Church, the familiars of the Hell Faith, the skeletons of death, the giants of storms and thunder. Whether it is pollution or evolution, the final right of interpretation lies in the hands of the winner. Back to the point, Wayne drove away the ordinary people in the library, his mind scattered, and looked for the office in the library. He had never entered the Moonlight Church base, and referring to the Sun Church base of the same level, he found 3 portals on the wall of the office. Hexagram. Cross star. Triangle star. 3 arched moon-shaped gates with simple shapes are inlaid on the wall, with simple graphics of 4 phases of the moon, namely dark moon, waning moon, new moon, and full moon, and the scene of all things thriving with vitality is still in front of us. The gate is also engraved with the image of the moonlight goddess, wearing a robe but not her face, drawing a bow and drawing an arrow with an elegant demeanor, which is not the white translucent lace hollow one-piece pajamas long dress that Wayne imagined. I didn't expect the music teacher to be so formal at work. Well, I almost didn't recognize her after she put on clothes. Wayne whispered, sniffing the sweet smell in the air, and came to the portal of the golden triangle symbol. That's the smell. It smells like Philomena, and he is confident that the perfume he selected and gave as a gift will not be wrong. Boss, this is the Moonlight Church's portal, which requires faith to open. Mona took the initiative to give herself a task. I'll go grab a magician from the Moonlight Church, it won't take much time. Don't bother, it's just the pagan's magic, it's very simple, there's still time to learn it now. Wayne put his 5 fingers on the arch, looked at the Book of Greed, absorbed the limited amount of water and moonlight, and the magic power was stained with a layer of bright white light, successfully activating the portal. What did I say? It's not too late to learn now. Wayne looked as if it was a matter of course. He was an angel. Angels learn everything quickly. They can be successful wherever they go as undercover agents. Mona didn't feel strange and accepted the explanation with peace of mind. Angels cannot be measured by common sense. If there is a problem, it is the person who raises the question. In short, the master is not wrong. She stepped into the portal first, and the scenery in front of her changed drastically. The dark sky, the full moon in the sky, and 2 sharp mountains rose from the ground. In the middle of the 2 mountains, the waterfall was like the Milky Way falling to the ground. Under the illumination of the moonlight, a silver-white water curtain was formed, flashing a soft light that calmed the mind. Right above the waterfall, a full moon covered the 2 mountains, corresponding to the dark pool below the waterfall. The 2 moon shadows reflected each other, forming a beautiful poem and painting. On the left and right sides of the sharp mountains, there are more than 10 churches of different sizes, shaped like the most loyal guards, guarding the goddess like the moon surrounded by stars. The waterfall hits the pool below, making a roaring sound. The air is filled with moist water vapor, accompanied by the fresh fragrance of plants and trees, isolating all the noise and disturbance. There is only sacredness and tranquility in the scene, as if the soul is washed by the water of the moonlight, purified and sublimated. Mona watched coldly, not tempted by the pagans. Wayne nodded secretly, these people who cut leaks by faith, the facades are more impressive than each other. Boss, this space has been imposed a faith barrier by the Moonlight Church. My ability is suppressed and I can't go all out. Mona looked at the holy marks on the back of her hand. The suppression was ridiculously strong. If it weren't for the holy marks, she would be no different from an ordinary person. Wayne closed his eyes and sensed it. Except for the strongest death and nature, the rest were weakened to the point of being unbearable to watch. He thought for a moment, took out the heavenly spear pendant from his chest, and placed it in front of Mona. This is an angel's weapon, use it well, and don't let me down. Please rest assured, even if I die in battle, I will protect your honor. Mona knelt on one knee to take the holy spear, her eyes flashing with golden light, and her tone was particularly solemn. Forget about dying, don't do it for real. This is the Moonlight Church, not our holy see. Everything should be based on self-preservation. There is no need to risk your life. Wayne felt it necessary to remind her that Mona was not him, and she was really brave enough to risk her life when she was hot-blooded. Thinking of this, he added, "Don't talk about death all the time. If you die, I can only find another servant. You don't want me to play those embarrassing little games with other nuns, right?" The effect was outstanding. Mona's anger value soared just by thinking about it. With the blessing of the heavenly spear, her buffs were fully pulled, and her strength was restored to about 80% of her peak period. She spread her white wings behind her, hugged Wayne and flew towards the two sharp mountains. Entering the Moonlight Church's headquarters in London, Wayne's sense of smell was no longer sensitive. Philomena covered her own breath, making him unable to smell anything. Without the guidance of the red name, Wayne could only passively explore the church on the top of the mountain. He chose the nearest landing and dodged to protect Mona in front of him. Routine operation, Mona had long been accustomed to it. The holy spear was half released, and the white light column was released, smashing the door of the church in front. It was not his own door, so there was no burden to blow it up. Wayne followed behind Mona and knocked down 4 or 5 churches in a row without seeing a ghost. The Moonlight Church was not allowed to expand before, and there were not many members in London. It was understandable that there were few people, but there was not no one. Boom! In the distance, a loud noise came, the roof of the white church exploded, and flames and black smoke rose. Mona hugged Wayne and soared into the sky, flapping her wings to the location of the exploded church, looking down from a high place, and saw the two groups of people in confrontation. More than a dozen magicians of the Moonlight Church were holding guns and swords, fighting against the twin magicians. As members of the same church, the twins struggled especially hard and were restrained everywhere. On the other hand, the enemy was unrelenting in every move, and had no intention of leaving anyone alive. What's going on? Is there a civil strife? Wayne looked down from above and tried to summon the elements of fire and wind, but failed. Even though there was a waterfall next to him, the content of water elements was extremely thin. He secretly felt helpless, and green light bloomed in his eyes, summoning vines to wash the ground. Still suppressed. Wayne was convinced. Belonging to the same alliance, the Moonlight Church's base did not allow the use of natural magic. Defending against their own people was like defending against thieves. How could they defeat the alliance of death and darkness with this group of insects? Mona, you go up, be gentle, don't kill anyone. Boss, who is the target? The side with more people. Wayne squinted his eyes. He had good eyesight and found that he had seen more than 10 magicians of the Moonlight Church at the airport. They should have been Philomena's confidants, but they rebelled for some reason. Killing each other. It can only be the devil's trick. Mona obeyed the order. Whoever Wayne said to hit, he would hit. The white wings stretched out, the holy light extended, and the white feathers materialized one by one, and the sword rain was projected from the air, and the people and horses below were blown up with saturation coverage. The white light fell to the ground, and the roar continued. These magicians all have unique skills. They are all combat elites trained by the headquarters. They worked together to set up the barrier and survived this wave of bombardment. Wayne landed on the ground and came to the twins. The two have always looked down upon the pretty boy. As bystanders, they believe that Wayne is not a good person. However, the high priest is obsessed with the sweet words of the other party. His IQ has dropped, and no matter how they persuade him, he will not be able to persuade him. Verna, why are you fighting among yourselves? Where is the high priest? X2. The twins looked at each other. They hated each other, but they had come to help. There was no reason to continue to give them the cold shoulder. One of them said, the high priest said they were controlled by the devil, So they left us here and went to the full moon cathedral alone. Where is the full moon cathedral? The other side of the waterfall, the church marked with the full moon phase. I see. Wayne nodded and sent a telepathic message to Mona, asking her to help on the other side of the cliff. He would come after he dealt with the trash on the other side. The wings flapped and flew to the other side of the cliff. Wayne looked at one of the twins, Verna, right? Let me handle this. You two just keep going forward and don't look back. Died, I'm not your sister. Verna, I'm here. The two did not explain anything. They didn't trust Wayne enough and resolutely followed the high priest's orders. Okay, give me a minute. Wayne pouted. If he wasn't curious about the twins' physiological structure and hoped to brush up a wave of favorability for future research, he wouldn't bother to pay attention to these two stupid heads. Boom. W omega omega to NCO. Wayne stepped forward, pulling the afterimage and disappearing in front of the twins. When his realm reached the silver stage, he experienced all kinds of restrictions and means to seal magicians, and he trusted his fists more and more. Magic power can be restricted, but life essence cannot. Magicians must rely on their fists to speak. On the opposite side, more than a dozen magicians noticed Wayne approaching, loaded magic bullets, and fired. In the high-speed continuous shooting state, fluorescent bullets swayed one by one, with their own trajectory correction, covering Wayne's position, blocking all the space for dodging left and right. Wayne rushed forward against the rain of bullets, and the bullets touched his body and went straight through. His self-healing speed was amazing, and the bullet holes were filled in an instant. At first glance, it seemed as if he was transparent and passed through the rain of bullets. The twins were full of question marks. They did not detect the fluctuation of magic power on the pretty boy. It was not magic, but only physical strength, so. One of us? X2. Wayne ignored the rain of bullets and rushed into the crowd with a few quick steps. More than a dozen elites decisively abandoned their guns and fought with swords instead. They were extraordinary in martial arts, experienced in fighting, and proficient in faith magic. They faced the strong enemy with all their strength. Each of them had an elegant elf face. Under the blessing of life magic, the essence of life was strengthened, and the strength and speed were improved to varying degrees. Wayne was faster and stronger. Boom. Wayne's speed suddenly increased. With one step, he was 10 meters away. He slapped the slow-moving longsword in front of him with one hand, and punched a beautiful elf face. The air was squeezed and dispersed by pure power, and the violent airflow blew wrinkles on the elf's face. She was panicked in her eyes, and she flew backwards in the next second, smashing into the white church like a cannonball. The turbulent airflow flew around, and in the center of the encirclement, the strong wind rushed in all directions. Every time a cannon sounded, gravel flew down. Shells flew out and hit the white church accurately. As the last elf face was disfigured by Wayne, the church could not bear the weight, the wall collapsed, and turned into ruins, burying more than a dozen elites. Wayne was surrounded by potholes and messes everywhere. He put his fist behind his back and said calmly, "Please let them sleep for a while, no one will die." X2. The twins did not say anything, neither thanked nor praised, bypassed Wayne and went straight to the front. "You can get the men of the high priest at this time. You have no ambition at all. You deserve to be your younger brothers," Wayne complained and followed closely. Unfamiliar with the place, the gentleman protected the two teammates in front of him. The twins did not explore the surrounding churches, and walked lightly to the top of the mountain. The moon above his head was getting bigger and bigger. Wayne couldn't help but take a look. The fake moon was projected here by magic, but it had an amplifying effect on the belief in moonlight. If I guessed correctly, it was because of this full moon that other faith magics were restricted everywhere. Wayne was considering whether to blow up the moon, and the twins came to the edge of the cliff, stepped onto the arch moonstone bridge, and rushed to the opposite cliff. Suddenly, the road ahead was blocked, and a magician in a white robe blocked the way. Moonlight Church Priest, Golden Mage Doreen. Doreen used life magic to become an elf and return to her youthful beauty. Her long golden hair fell on her white robe, and the moonlight was like water, pouring on her golden hair and delicate face, with a layer of silver halo attached, making her temperament more graceful and elegant. The twins didn't waste any words, drew their guns and shot. The golden mage's life barrier opened, steadily caught the magic bullet, pointed out a white light with a finger, and the water like moonlight turned into a cold blade, suddenly covering the whole place. Boom! The arch moonstone bridge collapsed, and Wayne and the twins fell into the waterfall, falling into the abyss with the water. After dealing with the troublemakers, Doreen turned and walked towards the white church. Her eyes were deep and powerful, completely different from the dozen unlucky people controlled by the devil before. Bang! 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 3 figures burst out with magic power, stepping on the air and returning to the broken bridge. A bloodline was cut on the face of Verna, one of the twins, and the moonlight covered the wound, emitting a bright glow, wiping away the scar and repairing it as before. Deed was in a worse situation, with a section of her right arm cut off. With her ability, she could not recreate a limb out of thin air, so she chose to stop the bleeding immediately. It's just an arm, it doesn't matter if you don't want it. Here, your hand. Wayne handed over a half arm from behind and patted Deed on the chest. Verna, take care of your body, don't always think about sacrificing for someone. At this point, he looked at the golden wizard opposite. Leave it to me, you two just rush forward and don't look back. Deed whispered thank you, and with the help of his sister, he reattached the broken arm. This time, the twins were very obedient and bypassed Doreen and went straight to the location of the full moon church. Wayne stood on the broken bridge, with the sound of water rumbling behind him, frowning and looking at Doreen, Chris's adoptive mother. Mr. Wayne, this is a private matter of the Moonlight Church, you shouldn't get involved. I'm not interested in the Moonlight Church, but the devil. Can't just leave it alone. Restarting the myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 182. Devil. Doreen murmured, unwilling to answer directly, and instead said, the devil cannot be left alone, but your strength is not even as good as mine, so how can you face the devil? She shook her head. Leave, you have funded the Moonlight Church, I have no hostility towards you. Wayne was surprised. Since you are not controlled by the devil and you hate the devil, why do you want to cooperate with the other party and why do you regard the high priest as your enemy? This is not something you should know. If I tell you, I will definitely kill people and silence you. Are you sure you want to listen? Doreen said lightly, her voice was soft and not threatening at all. I'm a detective. As long as I can get the truth, I'm willing to die. Wayne looked righteous. It is impossible for the church to grow and develop in Windsor. The most successful one in the Life Alliance is the Natural Church. As a result, the Dark Knight appeared and the hundreds of years of efforts of the Natural Church were wiped out. Doreen spoke plainly, concluding that the Dark Knight was related to the Ministry of Magic, and continued, the High Priest is very prestigious and powerful. It is said that she is close to the realm of the legendary mage. But so what? Even if she is a legendary mage, she is no match for the Dark Knight, not to mention that the Death Knight's minions have also touched London. The Ministry of Magic will not let the Life Alliance grow. All operations and arrangements are only aimed at the Holy See of Heavenly Father. The Moonlight Church wants to expand in Windsor. In addition to external pressure, it must have an absolutely strong person in charge. Doreen said contradictory words. The High Priest is not powerful enough, but if she dies, the impact will be enough to make the royal family abandon its current strategy. Wayne frowned and listened. To be honest, he didn't understand. He felt that the woman opposite had something wrong with her mind. Her plan was full of loopholes and illogical, and she was standard self-righteousness. After Doreen finished speaking, she raised her sword like a finger, the moonlight shrouded her, and she was about to send Wayne on his way. "Wait a minute, let me interrupt." Wayne raised his hand to stop, wanting to know more clearly, who is this absolutely strong man you call, the new legendary mage from the Moonlight Church? No, he's been in Windsor. There is such a thing. Wayne's mind froze, and he thought of some possibility, and asked tentatively, "A legendary mage from the Ministry of Magic?" "Mr. Wayne, this is not what you should know. Please, I'm dying." "That won't work either." Doreen smiled and pointed her finger down like a sword. The accumulated moonlight condensed almost solidly, and the hazy figure of the goddess could be vaguely seen. The funeral was very luxurious. "Wait a minute, I want to interrupt." Wayne clasped his hands together and tilted his head. "To tell you the truth, I have a lifelong private engagement with your adopted daughter Chris. I have done this and that. For Chris's sake, let me die as clearly beforehand." "Mr. Wayne, don't be ridiculous. Chrissy is a good girl who loves herself. She is very pure and has not been tainted by you." Defiled has several meanings. "Hey, you old woman, I complimented you a few times and you still picked it up." Wayne snorted coldly, "I haven't been in it, but there are many kinds of interactions between couples. Just because you haven't been in it doesn't mean you haven't been in it. If you don't believe me, ask her if that kind of thing has been done before." Doreen was stunned when she heard this. Soon, her face became terrifyingly gloomy, and murderous intent enveloped her, locking onto the space around Wayne. "Sacrifice, you know it very well." Wayne raised his brows and had reason to suspect that Doreen was from here. He continued to say, "So that's it? He, the legendary mage from the Ministry of Magic, is your lover?" Boom. The light of the water and moon filled the air and gathered into a dense mist, covering Wayne's location in all directions without blind spots. The sharp blades of cold light weaved into a large net, densely interspersed and divided. In an instant, the number of attacks increased to a density that drove away all life, leaving no trace of life. Chris is no longer pure. She cannot be chosen to be reincarnated. The ritual must stop. Doreen's face was ashen. She turned around and took just 2 steps when she was stopped by a cold voice behind her. "Who is that? What do you mean by ritual and reincarnation? Where is Chris?" Wayne stepped out of the thick fog, his body filled with deathly aura, his cold eyes dimmed with a dark luster, and his face looked horribly cold. "Die." Doreen was shocked. "You are a student of the High Priest of the Church of Nature, why do you master the magic of belief in death? It's so advanced that it can resist the full force of the Golden Mage. Answer me, what does ritual and reincarnation mean?" Wayne stepped forward, and the air of death turned into grey tentacles and spread out. Wherever it passed, life withered, strangling all tangible and intangible things until they were reduced to ashes. Doreen was shocked by his momentum and subconsciously took a few steps back. After regaining consciousness, she opened her mouth to speak from the moral high ground. "The High Priest of the Church of Nature colludes with the Church of Death. The Alliance will not let it go. You and your teacher are dead. You should survive first and then talk about it." Wayne opened his fingers, the surging death energy filled the air, the shock wave rippled and rolled in the air, and the terrifying murderous intention was instantly pushed in front of Doreen. A look of horror and disbelief appeared in the latter's eyes. The life barrier was unable to stop the invasion of the air of death. "This is impossible." Doreen didn't believe it. She fought against many magicians from the Church of Death, including gold-level experts. At the same level, neither side can do anything to the other. Just looking at Wayne's use of the death energy, it was simple and crude, and could be described as crude. He was not even worthy of carrying the shoes of the Golden Wizard's magic art, and it was impossible to shake her life barrier. Crack. The life barrier cracked and was about to collapse. Doreen was shocked and stopped thinking. She cut the black crack with her hands, took out a silver moon bow, turned it into an arrow with pure magic power, shaped it with her mind, created countless possibilities, and shot it straight into the depths of the grey fog. The arrow cut through the grey fog, like a pair of scissors tearing apart cloth, and the bright arrow light dispersed, pulling a magic circle in the air. Doreen's original intention was to expel the death energy, but she underestimated the quality of the death energy. What she faced was never magic, but death itself, which was higher than magic. The Book of Greed does not eat magic, despises it, the taste is too light, and the taste is tricky. It traces the source of magic and captures the law to satisfy hunger. What it gave Wayne was also written in the starry sky. The endless Milky Way and the endless sea of stars are the absolute truth that magicians pursue throughout their lives, knowledge. The Book of Greed is a book. There is no doubt that what is written in the book can only be knowledge. Magic can defeat magic, but it cannot shake knowledge. Even if Wayne does not have much knowledge, it is enough to suppress a golden wizard across the evolutionary level. The scattered moonlight lasted only a few seconds before it disappeared. Doreen could not defeat death. She was experienced in combat and seized the opportunity to withdraw from the battle within a few seconds, and escaped from the coverage of the death aura with difficulty. Several silver-white stripes appeared on her face, and her delicate and elegant face became more holy. She looked at the wriggling death aura. In front of her eyes, the death fortress was growing wildly under the blessing of violent magic power. Dozens of tentacles about 100 meters long spread out, sweeping in all directions, giving an absolute end and leaving eternal tranquility. In the center of the tentacles, a death magic eye opened, without negative emotions, no mental pollution, only peace. Doreen was horrified, and an idea came to her mind. She tasted the belief and pursuit of moonlight in this tranquility. Just like the phase of the dark moon, it represents tranquility, helping believers to drive away negativity and eliminate fear. When did moonlight and death have a common topic? Doreen found it hard to imagine the scene of two goddesses sitting down to drink tea. She couldn't understand this world. She broke up the absurd idea, and silver-white stripes flickered between her cheeks and eyebrows, attracting the cold moonlight and revealing the figure of the goddess holding a bow. The ethereal figure was not real, and only outlined a minimalist shadow. With the explosion of magic power at the level of a gold wizard, the figure of the moonlight goddess gradually solidified, the white hood danced without wind, and a pair of silver-white cold eyes slowly opened on the holy face of the goddess. Boom! The divine power swept across the whole scene, and the will above everything else pressed down overwhelmingly. Under the blessing of the huge full moon, it destroyed the aura of death with a strong attitude of cleansing the world. The grey fog cleared in an instant and returned to Wayne's body. The majesty of God cannot be challenged, and he is not qualified to confront the magic of the Golden Mage. The Book of Greedy peeks out. JPG. It smelled the sweetness of food in the light of the full moon, and was eager to try. It asked Wayne to hurry up, so that it could eat and both brothers could make money. Who are you talking to? Wayne secretly thought it was bad luck. The Golden Mage had too many tricks. It was a high-end game. He didn't need the Death Knight vest. He could only fight with the Book of Greedy. The white foam squirmed, and Wayne turned into a faceless man with pale limbs and dancing tentacles behind him. A vertical line split his chest, and the huge one-eyed man opened, greedily absorbing the light of the full moon. The magic of the Golden Mage brought not only the power of the Moonlight Goddess, but also the breath of the goddess. That was the goddess, and there were hundreds of explanations for her fart. The majestic pressure enveloped him. The more the Book of Greed ate, the less pressure Wayne had on him. He successfully got under the goddess' skirt, hugged her long legs and became one of her own. The moonlight stalk soared, overwhelming the darkness. Doreen stared at the monster in front of her in amazement. Her first thought was, What on earth had Chris been played by? No, the first thought was, what on earth was Wayne? This face was clearly a polluted magician. She suddenly realized and roughly understood the source of Wayne's strange strength. She was fortunate to see the gate of truth. His mind and body were polluted, but for some reason he regained his sanity. In this way, it can be explained. Ugly face, you are lucky not to be crazy. You should have been sent to the forgotten prison, but you know too much. Doreen drew her bow and drew an arrow, guiding the moonlight to fall from the sky. The silver-white light column roared to the ground, carrying boundless divine power to break through layers of space, swaying the extremely bright streamer, and descended to where Wayne was. The light entered his body, and Wayne's body froze. Book of Greed, hiccup. It's done. It's gone now, can't you eat slower? Wayne thought that Book of Greed's eating manners were too ugly, but Book of Greed didn't think so. The dishes were served on the other side, and it was time to overturn the table after eating them all. The ground collapsed with a bang. Doreen lost the figure of the monster in her eyes, and in surprise, she opened the life barrier for defense. The divine magic to protect the body is equivalent to fighting under the eyes of the goddess. She didn't believe that the monster could hurt her, but the tentacles were too disgusting, and she didn't want to be touched even once. Pa! Wayne appeared again, his white body lying in front of Doreen, but he didn't pounce on her, but hit the life barrier. Dolan was horrified. She looked into the big eyes at close range. Her thinking was disturbed. A low whisper rang in her ears, making her head buzz. It was just a noise, not enough to make her panic. Her own life barrier chose to reject it. The terrible thing was that the monster ignored the pressure of the goddess. To be more precise, the goddess did not stop the monster from attacking her. The divine power that should have enveloped the whole scene disappeared at this moment. He he he. Dolan heard a gloomy and terrifying laugh in her ears. She raised her hand and shot an arrow. The cold light penetrated the white rotten meat and rushed into the distant starry sky. It hit, but did not cause any damage. The precise moonlight attack was delayed, once again proving that the goddess turned a blind eye. How could this happen? Dolan was at a loss and lost her normal thinking ability. As a golden mage, she still had many means, but the goddess's ruthless abandonment made her feel terrified. She was at a loss when she was terrified. Faith makes people firm, but it can also collapse a person's mind in an instant. The life barrier was in danger, and it collapsed by itself under Doran's panic. White foam gathered from all directions, and tentacles wrapped around and tightened, dragging the female elf to hang in the air, revealing the graceful curves under the robe. A tentacle wrapped around Doran's neck, tightening her fair skin. The latter whispered in her ear, and her eyes looked at the goddess's shadow that had not yet dissipated. The gods were high above and motionless, and below were the disciples who were entangled and locked by the tentacle monster. What a devastating scene! My goddess, why did you give up on me? Doran couldn't hold it anymore, staring up at the sky, as if forgetting her own situation. Isn't this simple? It's not that the goddess gave up on you, but that you betrayed her. From the moment you murdered the high priest, your faith is no longer loyal. A tentacle hung in front of Doran, opening its mouth and tongue to guide her thinking, and while her faith was confused, it stabbed the knife that pierced her heart frantically. Doreen struggled to believe it. She did not murder the high priest. The Moonlight Church did not lack a high priest. Everything she did was for the future of the church. The living high priest could not change anything. Only the dead high priest was a hero. She had shed blood for the church. She wanted to see the goddess and explain it clearly. Don't struggle. Why should the goddess explain anything to you? Open your eyes and see clearly. The facts are in front of you. You are a traitor, and I am the judgment given to you by the goddess. The tentacle cracks merged and suddenly drilled into Doreen's mouth. White meat foam flowed out of her nose, ears, and eyes. Doreen opened her mouth and could not bite it off. A voice full of coercion dispelled the whispers and rang in her ears, "Blasphemer, face the glory of the goddess, give you one last chance, what is the meaning of ritual and reincarnation, where is Chris? Above the legend, demigod. That child has divine blood. Doreen has lost consciousness, her mind has been polluted, and her body can no longer maintain the appearance of an elf." At the moment when her magic power went out of control, the magic dissipated, the goddess' shadow faded away, and the soft water like moonlight was as usual. Wayne disintegrated Doreen's mind and drilled into her body to find the answer. Half a minute later, the wriggling white foam left Doreen's body and reorganized into Wayne's appearance. He waved his hand to roll away the tentacles and lifted the pants on the ground in front of him. The golden wizard was very strong, and he couldn't beat him without taking off his clothes. Behind him, Doreen collapsed on the ground, tears and snot flowing, her limbs occasionally twitched, her eyes wide open and unable to close, and her dim eyes showed that her mind had collapsed. A closer look showed that her body had been polluted, her long hair twisted into several strands, turned into white tentacles and squirmed. Wayne said calmly, "You may not have good intentions in adopting these children, but you cannot deny your kindness in raising Chris. Judging from your actions, you have done her a favor. I will not kill you for Chris's sake. If you have any more excuses or grievances, let the high priest judge." Wayne pulled up his pants and left without looking back. "Deputy Minister of Magic, Ob. God's blood. I can't bear to bully you, but you dare to move. Fine, fine, today I will make you bleed like a river. And Thousand Eyes Demon, you are still alive. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 183. Full Moon Cathedral. There are 4 cathedrals in the Moonlight Church. According to the phases of the moon, they are dark moon, waning moon, new moon, and full moon, which correspond to the magic in the Book of Moon Shadows, and also represent the 4 different departments of authority within the Moonlight Church. These are all later stories. Let's just say that Wayne tiptoed to the door of the cathedral, saw smoke everywhere, and no teammates to protect him, so he looked into the dark door. The door was dim, and the black mist rolled like a tide, quietly without any sound. The atmosphere was weird, like a trap. In the past, Wayne would definitely not take risks. Even if he took risks, he would throw 2 teammates to test the waters first, and then go in after confirming that there was no problem. Not today. The information tortured from Doreen's mind was too horrifying. Even if it was for justice, he had to go. It had to be faster. If it was too late, Chris would not be Chris. Wayne stepped in front of the black fog, raised his hand and turned it into a tentacle, stirred the black mist, said bad luck, and strode into it. Passing through the black curtain, in front of him was a bunker tunnel that extended in all directions. The stone corridor was dark, and the occasional flashing fluorescent stone provided weak light. The air was filled with a dull smell of decay. When he stepped into it, only the sound of footsteps echoed, and there was no other sound. Wayne looked around and spread his perception. The tunnel was sometimes wide and sometimes narrow, and it seemed to have no end. Damp and dark, these are the environments that insects like. Suddenly, Wayne frowned and ran quickly in one direction. He saw the cross-section of the space, and his perception was blurred and dark, and he could not sense what the other side looked like. At the end of the corridor, Wayne saw a mirror. The man in the mirror had dark eyes, hideous features, a strange smile, and even a disgusting sharp laugh. He. A standard villain laugh. Wayne frowned and raised his hand to punch. He didn't hit it. He punched the surrounding wall, dug out a fist-sized piece of gravel, and smashed it hard against the mirror. There was a crisp sound, and the mirror broke. Dense and rustling insects flowed down from the broken mirror. The number was as shocking as a flood that broke the dam, and it sprayed out directly. Wayne did not move, death surrounded him, and he endured the nausea of the dense swarm of insects and walked into the hole with his head held high. There were no other passages around, all of them were dead ends, and he could only take this one. The devil's bad taste, this is not an attack, it's purely disgusting. The swarm of insects has certain attack capabilities, gnawing, venom, and corrosive venom after the explosion, but in the face of equal death, these are all small tricks that are not worthy of being on the table. Wayne passed through the 100-meter-long black torrent, and there was another mirror in front of him. The him in the mirror behaved funny, dancing like a clown. Without thinking too much, Wayne used the same trick again, picked up a piece of gravel and threw it at the mirror. There was a loud bang. Before Wayne threw the stone in his hand, a magic bullet broke through the mirror and shot towards him, at an extremely fast speed, not giving him time to react at all. The bullet hit his chest, and Wayne was slightly stunned. Seeing the figure on the other side of the broken mirror, he rolled his eyes and fell to the ground against the wall. Ah! Philomena walked out quickly, and saw that her lover was hit by her, and her face turned pale with fear. She squatted beside Wayne, holding him in her arms with a facial cleanser, explaining and apologizing, while pressing her hand on Wayne's chest. The moonlight in her palm surged, trying to fill the gap. However, it didn't happen. Death is not afraid of death, and this magic bullet did not leave a scar. Philomena spat softly, secretly said that she hated it, and pushed the face that was breathing heavily in front of her chest away. Although she hated it, she was not annoying. She was cute in a naughty way. Philomena stood up, turned her back to Wayne, adjusted her hair, and said in surprise and joy, "Why are you here? The Ministry of Magic was attacked, don't you go over to take a look? My mission is to protect the safety of the High Priest around the clock. Without the order of the Ministry of Magic, I cannot leave my post without permission." Wayne stood up, explained the reason in a business-like manner, lowered Philomena's expectations, and added, "Besides, the Ministry of Magic is not as important as you, Mina. I was worried that you were in danger, so I rushed here as soon as possible. Sure enough, he has me in his heart." Philomena was overjoyed. She hasn't mentioned the bet for a long time. It's not important, she only knows that true heart is exchanged for true heart. This wave is a two-way rush. Wayne spared no effort to exude his boyfriend power, focusing on being sincere and reliable. After a few words of concern, he went straight to the point. "This space is the underground nest of the devil's projection. Have you found a way out?" "I found the pattern." Philomena knew that now was not the time to talk about love, so she told about her exploration of the chaotic space. The devil was unwilling to fight head-on and kept delaying time. All the magicians of the Moonlight Church disappeared. According to the devil's style of doing things, she speculated that this was a large-scale sacrifice. As Philomena talked, she took Wayne through the corridor, counting the steps, demolishing the wall when she met it, and destroying the mirror when she met it, as if she was doing a math problem. It was indeed a math problem. Although the space was chaotic, it was not unsolvable. You can leave this space by summarizing the pattern and substituting it into the formula. Facts have proved that high education and being deceived do not conflict. Philomena has a first-rate mind, is an excellent question writer, and has considerable magical attainments. Her sword, magic, and equipment show that she is not rigid and is willing to accept new things. Then she was played with by a scumbag and thought it was love. Without further ado, Wayne found a teammate and protected him enthusiastically. He also told his own information. "I just met Priest Doreen outside. She rebelled and joined forces with a member of the Ministry of Magic. The legendary mage also cooperates with the devil. She wants to kill you and become the next High Priest." Philomena remained silent and did not respond. Her pace quickened, and after a moment she replied, "Did you kill her?" Although Wayne is not a golden mage, he is full of secrets. Philomena never doubts his strength and believes that he has the ability to defeat Doreen. "No, you are the high priest, you should handle it." "Thank you." Philomena sincerely lamented that her little boyfriend was so sensible and considerate, but on the other hand, she had become more and more childish recently. If this was love, she hoped the storm would come more violently. "I defeated Doreen with the flesh and blood of the star beast, and took advantage of her confused thinking to ask for information." The traitor in the Ministry of Magic was Deputy Minister Orb Windsor, a member of the royal family. He had known Doreen a long time ago and controlled her through Doreen. The power of the Moonlight Church in London. Orb deceived Doreen on the pretext of joining the Moonlight Church. Wayne quickly told how the two knew each other. As a priest of the Moonlight Church, Doreen was under control in London and was made things difficult for her by the Ministry of Magic. Orb extended a helping hand and helped Doreen overcome several difficulties. After gaining trust, he obtained the faith magic of the Moonlight Church through Doreen. Lang was interested in concubine, and love came naturally. Doreen was convinced that Orb would not deceive her, and under the other's instruction, she adopted a group of homeless children in the name of cultivating elites for the church. That stupid woman was completely brainwashed by Orb. Philomena sighed. The sad guy blindly believed in non-existent love and made one wrong step after another, which led to today's tragedy. Staying out of the situation, Philomena saw it very clearly and was sure that Orb was behind the first few difficulties Doreen encountered. Because of the bonus of the hero saving the beauty, Doreen subconsciously ignored these potential possibilities. Thinking of this, Philomena deeply felt how lucky she was. She had almost the same experience, a priest and a wizard from the Ministry of Magic, and Wayne would only feel sorry for her. The devil who cooperated with Orb is called the Thousand-Eyed Demon. He came to London before, and Orb left part of his mind behind. Wayne looked at Philomena's back and was frightened when telling the information, fearing that the other party would learn something from it. "Mina, one of Doreen's adopted sons has divine blood and is a descendant of a god. Is there such a thing?" Philomena was shocked and stopped to let Wayne explain clearly. "Get out of here first and talk as we go. We don't have much time." Wayne patted his butt and told Philomena to walk faster, and continued, "When I tortured the information, Doreen was confused and answered whatever questions she asked. I believe she won't lie. Orb asked Doreen to adopt the children from the orphanage and follow the elite training route. I don't know what method the two of them used to find the so-called Son of God. According to Orb's CPU on Doreen, the Ministry of Magic's policy of suppressing the church will never change. If the Moonlight Church wants to stand up in London, it must meet conditions such as public opinion, strength, etc. Public opinion is external pressure, that is, several churches have joined forces to put pressure on the Ministry of Magic, but this is not enough. Someone has to stand out, and it would be best if the Moonlight Church had a high priest. Strength is internal pressure, and there must be someone stronger than the legendary mage to take charge. Under the intricate constraints of all parties, divine blood is undoubtedly the best choice. Doreen said a lot at the time, and Wayne deleted the details. In summary, Orb wanted to seize Sheklis and go further through the blood of God. This is a conjecture based on the existing intelligence. Doreen is just a pawn. It is impossible for Orb to tell the whole truth. There should be a bigger conspiracy. Otherwise Orb would have taken action long ago, and there was no need to wait for the devil to show up and risk being betrayed by the devil to make a deal. Wayne was curious about what role the Thousand-Eyed Demon played in the plan. The devil would not willingly act as a tool. The Thousand-Eyed Demon must have his own plan. After hearing the information, Philomena frowned and said in a cold voice, "The Son of God is the adopted son of the church priest. It is a gift from the goddess to the church. I will not let them harm that child." Wayne nodded repeatedly, he thought so too. Wayne, what's the kid's name? Chrissy Lighty. Philomena stopped again, looked at Wayne up and down, and felt it was necessary to remind him, she is still a child. Stay away from her in the future. If anything happens, you will come at me. I'm a child too. Wayne felt extremely wronged. He was just a child. Why should he be suppressed by his aunt and Chris couldn't be with the person she liked? Bullying honest people again, right? You are different. Your mind is not like that of a child. You are very mature. Philomena hesitated, but in short, Wayne already had her, and he had to treat love from the beginning to the end, and he couldn't eat what was in the bowl and still miss what was in the pot. Speaking of this, Philomena's pressure doubled. Although she believed in her own charm and believed that her boyfriend would not betray her. Chrissy is really young, so tender that she can squeeze out water. The two walked around, Philomena obtained the answer based on the formula, and took Wayne out of the chaotic space. What he saw before his eyes were the ruins of an ancient city that were very familiar to Wayne, with broken walls and ruins, a dead place completely devoid of life. The strong wind blew by, the gravel flew up, and the surging energy violently impacted high in the sky. Darkness and light became entangled in one place after a brief separation. Wayne looked up and found that Mona had arrived, holding a holy spear and fighting the thousand-eyed demon alone, leaving the latter in a state of panic. I have to say that angels are always the most professional when dealing with devils. Philomena was the first to arrive, and it took a lot of effort to break through the chaotic space arranged by the thousand-eyed demon. Mona arrived first, and directly confronted the thousand-eyed demon. I remember her. Philomena recognized Mona, who stood behind Wayne like a minion at the Capitol Hotel. Now that the two of them appeared at the same time, the sense of crisis increased. He hugged Wayne's arm and clamped it on his chest, saying sourly, "You two came together, are you familiar? She doesn't look young anymore. That's younger than you two." Wayne complained in his heart and explained seriously, "Don't think nonsense, she is an assistant provided by the Holy See. I take the benefits of the Holy See and often help them drive away devils." "Is that so?" Philomena expressed doubts, and Wayne continued, "The Holy See is much smarter than other churches. They spared no effort to win me over to join them. To be honest, they gave too much sincerity. I almost nodded several times." Philomena was furious, she knew that good men are in demand everywhere. First came the shameless allies, and then the shameless Holy See, each one hunting down honest people. "Mina, you go deal with the devil, and I'll go look for the Son of God." According to the intelligence, she should be nearby. Wayne struggled to pull out his arm, sensed the spread, and looked for Chris's location. Philomena still felt a lot of sourness, but she also knew that now was not the time to be emotional. The silver light in her eyes flashed and her whole body turned into an elf. The silver-white stripes are symmetrical on the left and right, attached to the cheeks, a strand of silver long hair hangs down by the ears, and the eyes are crystal clear, like the purest moonlight. She was already amazingly charming, but after transforming into an elf, she was so beautiful that she was no longer human-like. After Philomena transformed into an elf, her height jumped to nearly 2 meters. She noticed Wayne's stunning and cute expression, raised her hand and put it between her lips, and gently covered the corners of Wayne's mouth with the lingering fragrance of her fingers. After teasing her little boyfriend, Philomena opened her ice wings behind her back, and the wind elements gathered together, soaring into the sky in an instant. Is there ice magic in Moonlight's belief? Wayne wondered, turned around and rushed east. I have to say, the elf is really a good thing. Next time he applies night cream, let his aunt change his body first. High in the sky, two women over 30 years old looked at each other and saw dissatisfaction in each other's eyes. Women's intuition tells them that the escorts have bad intentions and are greedy for the body of their master/boyfriend. Bah, shameless. X2. The pressure on the thousand-eyed demon doubled, and the ruins isolated the territory exerted by the Moonlight Church on the stronghold. Mona outputted all her power, and the holy spear in her hand was comparable to the angel summoned to the world by the Golden Rule. Although he got the help of Orb and descended all his thoughts and even his body, because he lost a large area of territory in hell, his strength is really limited. Fighting one strong enemy is enough, and another one will definitely kill him. Thinking of his plan, the thousand-eyed demon gritted his teeth. He had nothing to lose and had nothing to worry about. It's done, return to hell and become the devil. No. You can only succeed but not fail. All the chips are on the table. This is the last resort. The holy flame surges and the moon shines like frost. Two equally holy but completely different manifestations of faith magic alternate and repeat. The thousand-eyed demon is unable to defeat it and sacrifices its body in advance. The giant black insect about a kilometer long spits out black smoke and reshapes itself. In human territory. In terms of realm strength, the thousand-eyed demon is undoubtedly stronger than the legendary mage. He can give his power to others, that is, his dependents, and shape his own familiars. This is undoubtedly an ability only possessed by demigods. But Orbuka's card was too accurate, and he let the thousand-eyed demon go for 2 months. He waited until the latter lost a large area of territory in hell and his strength dropped to a freezing point before providing resources and transactions with him. The thousand-eyed demon offers a refuge, a possibility to hell. Orb provided the thousand-eyed demon with a new body to ensure that he could come to the world. In a mutually restrictive transaction, both of them believed that they would have the last laugh. Now the thousand-eyed demon can't stop smiling. There are no angels in the plan, and there is no high priest who suddenly returns home. He has reason to suspect that this is Orb's conspiracy. Fortunately, he also had a conspiracy, otherwise he would have died without knowing how. To the east of the ruins of the ancient city, a black afterimage galloped across the ground. The wind element was light and moved extremely quickly. A black light curtain blocked the way. Wayne ignored it, looked at the Book of Greed, activated the power of hell, and plunged into the depths of darkness. The inverted pentagram barrier determined that he was one of his own and opened the door to let Wayne in successfully. Immediately afterwards, there was the barrier arranged by Orb. The 3 major faiths of the Life Alliance blocked the road layer by layer, and the requirements for the quality of the intruders were extremely high. Wayne still breaks through easily, with one more skill and one more path. His path is wild enough, and he is one of his own wherever he goes. It's impossible to trouble him at all. Wayne broke through the layers of barriers and stepped into the dark realm. Orb used his thinking to create a still space. To ensure that it was safe, he also dragged part of the starry sky down. The crazy knowledge mixed in it was enough to stop all golden mages. Who is that? Dinner is ready. Wayne's body swelled, and he rolled his tentacles into the dark realm. Restarting the myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 184. Forestry Resources Planning Service. Ministry of Magic, Headquarters. 2 figures fluttered their wings, folded their wings and landed outside the barrier. Gunther used polarizing magic to cover his whereabouts along the way. According to the agreement signed between the Holy See and the royal family, he did not take the opportunity to publicize his father's glory. Whichever is more important, he is a smart man and has his own plans in mind. Renata folded her wings and looked forward. Outside the barrier, a figure came one step ahead and was studying a way to open the barrier without saying a word. She has short blonde hair, a housekeeper's suit, and a delicate and unsmiling appearance. Megan. When Austin received Wayne's call, Gunther and Renata had already set off from St. Paul's Cathedral and were still on their way, but Megan arrived at the Ministry of Magic headquarters before them. "Ma'am, are you from the Ministry of Magic?" Gunther asked politely, showing his good intentions in coming to help. Megan nodded and said bluntly, "Someone projected the skeleton forbidden zone. The Ministry of Magic headquarters is imprisoned in the place of exile. People inside can't get out, and people outside can't get in. Is there any way in?" Renata's face was expressionless, as all angels are. She's arrogant and has a bad personality that makes it difficult to communicate. Gunther had heard of the skeleton forbidden zone, the legendary prison of the forgotten. Lundan's prison gate was set up in the Red Leaf Forest Lunatic Asylum and was personally guarded by a legendary mage. Once upon a time, Hongyelen Lunatic Asylum belonged to the Holy See, the famous Inquisition. The Holy See had the final say on who was crazy and who was not. This is no longer possible. The power of the Holy See in Windsor has been castrated, and Hongyelen Lunatic Asylum has changed hands. Although clergy from the Holy See are allowed to join, this is a check and balance. Members of several other churches can also enter the lunatic asylum and obtain positions. Everyone has it and can do it, and the power is concentrated in the hands of the dean. Hearing what Megan said, Gunther couldn't help but doubt the identity of the mastermind behind the scenes. Planck, the director of the lunatic asylum, knew the forgotten prison best. He was the only one who had the ability to seal the Ministry of Magic without anyone noticing. Great, the Ministry of Magic is going to fight? Better to kill them all, the Pope likes this. Gunther was secretly happy. Not only did the Pope like it, he was also very happy. His face was filled with worry, and he expressed his concern for the Ministry of Magic. Windsor cannot live without the Ministry of Magic, just as the Church cannot live without the faith. Megan ignored it. She had been with Austin for a long time and knew Gunther's true thoughts. She said to Renata, who was suspected of being an angel, "There is a way to enter, but I need your help." Renata ignored Gunther's desperate wink. She came only to expel the devil and was willing to cooperate with Megan. "Why did you agree so quickly? Why wait a little longer? 5 minutes is fine." Gunther felt deeply helpless and realized the pain in the Pope's heart. Wild angels are like this, completely disregarding the interests of the Holy See in the world. "I hope Mona can do it quickly so that the Vatican can get a domestic angel so that they can speak louder with the confidence." The two women simply ignored Gunther and got together to discuss countermeasures. The main thing was Megan speaking and Renata listening. Although it was their first meeting, they surprisingly got along well. No matter which gray space is projected, a massive amount of energy is required, and the skeleton forbidden zone is no exception. Megan told the story calmly. The plan was simple and crude. She was responsible for finding the energy core and destroying it in case the organizer had other energy sources. She hoped that Renata would severely damage the space barrier as soon as she destroyed the energy core. As long as the space is destroyed, the projection of the skeleton forbidden zone will disappear, and no matter how many methods the organizer uses, there is nothing they can do about it. This plan is very appealing to Renata. She likes to be rough, ignoring Gunther and flying into the air. She accumulates holy light in her hands, and only waits for Megan to destroy the energy core before releasing her ultimate move. "Ma'am, do you need my help?" Gunther came to Megan's side and was willing to help save the Ministry of Magic. Megan glanced at him lightly. "Don't talk, standing here is the greatest help." Gunther was extremely embarrassed and wanted to explain a few words. Megan interrupted directly. "Every word you say will be used as evidence in court and submitted to the Ministry of Magic by me. For the benefit of the Holy See, I suggest that you remain silent." "Gunther, don't disturb this lady." From above, Renata's dissatisfied voice came. Gunther was not human inside and out, and stood aside depressed. He is also an angel, but he thinks Wayne is much cuter. He takes money to do things, is always on call, and when he hears the devil is coming, he runs faster than anyone else. Megan looked around, her blue eyes turned into gold and red eyes, and 10 minutes later, she punched a ball of air vigorously. Click. The fist roared, shattering the space and causing cracks in the mirror. Megan succeeded in testing and no longer hesitated. She struck hard several times to break the hidden barrier. What she saw was an extremely complex magic circle, with the main body being an inverted pentagram. At first glance, it looked like the work of the devil. It's not enough to be a devil. Megan found an ancient silver coin in the center of the magic circle, a token of the Ministry of Magic's high-level officials, which connected a gray space, thereby continuously transporting the four elements of earth, fire, water, and wind, ensuring and maintaining the projection of the restricted area of skeletons. In the air, arc storms cut through the air like sharp knives and emitted explosions, warning comers not to step in. Megan ignored the threat and stepped into the magic circle area expressionlessly. The violent offensive instantly overwhelmed her. The thunder snake ran away quickly, the space trembled, the storm roared and tore everything apart, and black spider web cracks opened in the collapsed space. Megan was bathed in the violent energy vortex, her body was blurred and invisible, a white dragon claw stretched out, passed through the flashing and intertwined arcs, and held the ancient silver coin firmly. Snap! Just like a light going out, the energy storm disappears in an instant. Buzz buzz. The air made a friction sound, and amidst the harsh sound waves, an inverted semicircular light curtain spread out and rippled over the Ministry of Magic. Renata's eyes bloomed with golden light, and she raised the holy spear above her head, releasing all the energy that had been accumulated for a long time. Boom! There was a loud noise that could be clearly heard by half of London. Cracks exploded on one side of the semicircular light curtain, and the shock wave swept across in the opposite direction. The strong wind set off rolled over Renata, blowing away Renata far away, uprooting the surrounding trees and turf, and throwing them howling into the distance. Gunther was frightened half to death. These two women acted recklessly. As the only rational person in the scene, he hurriedly used polarizing magic to cover up the movements around him. The visual effects masked it, and the hearing was completely lost. That loud noise was clearly heard by millions of people, not to mention the Queen next door. It is conceivable that if the Forestry Resources Planning Bureau does not give a reasonable explanation, it will be very busy in the future. There are also overseas spies who will definitely follow the clues of weapons of mass destruction. Gunther looked confused and was busy until the end. He was the only one who was sincerely helping the Ministry of Magic. After the violent wind moved away, Megan put on a black robe. There was a vacuum inside the robe, and she didn't know where she had hidden the ancient silver coins. Renata did not succeed in smashing the space barrier, but it was enough. The inner and outer spaces were connected in series. As long as the legendary mages were not dead, they could climb out. She was condescending, with golden light shining in her eyes, looking for suspicious targets. Soon, several flashing figures jumped out of the cracks in space. The legendary mages did not thank the angels, but bowed slightly to show their respect for higher-level beings. Planck was tied by a chain, and Hung Hao still refused to accept it. Although all evidence pointed to him, he knew that he was a good person. After rescuing the sealed legendary mages, Megan didn't want to stay long, so she turned around and left. Two figures blocked the way. Bon. Orb. The former stared at Megan with hot eyes and rubbed his hands like a pervert. The latter snorted coldly and said in a commanding tone, "Megan, you did a good job. Do you have Planck's ancient silver coin in your hand?" "Lord Orb, I didn't get any ancient silver coins." Megan put one hand on her chest and replied respectfully. "Is that so?" Orb's eyes flashed, and he glanced at Megan's chest. "You have been following Austin for so long, and your lies have become more and more powerful. Don't force me to hand over the ancient silver coins." "Obi, calm down, no matter what, Megan saved us. Rightward arrow." Bon made peace and looked at Megan cheerfully. "Ignore him, he was mad at Planck. Speaking of which, we haven't talked for a long time. Are you interested in sitting in my office? Megan's face was expressionless. Mr. Alston is still waiting for my return. The Moonlight Church's stronghold is suspected to be attacked by demons, so I won't disturb you all. With that said, he turned and left. Bone curled his lips and said dissatisfied, "Damn Austin, he is really good at coaxing women. If I had a mouth like his, Megan would definitely be devoted to me." "Bon, you stayed to watch Gangplank. His ancient silver coins were taken away by Megan. He is a traitor." Orb interrupted directly, and as the deputy minister, he gave the order and assigned tasks. "I will go to the Moonlight Church's stronghold first to take a look. The devil has worked hard and his plan is definitely not simple. Obi, our lockdown hasn't ended yet, and we can't leave now." Yvette, who is also the deputy minister, blocked the way. "Don't worry about the devil, the angel over there has already rushed over." Orb closed his eyes and shook his head. "Yvette, angels are not trustworthy. The current situation is still entangled with the ban, which will only put London in danger. We are the only ones who can protect London." "That makes sense." Yvette nodded and said smoothly, "But your suspicion has not been cleared, so you are not suitable to appear in the Moonlight Church. I was ordered by the minister to receive the high priest of the Moonlight Church. It is most suitable for me to go there." Orb frowned fiercely, and after pondering for a moment, he said, "If you insist, I will accept this statement." After saying that, he walked towards the Ministry of Magic and no longer insisted on going to the library of Moonlight Church. Yvette was not in a hurry to go there. The situation was unclear, so she let the angel explore the way first, and talked with several other legendary mages to discuss how to deal with Gangplank. "You old guys, you all said I was wronged." Plank refused to admit guilt and told a lot of possibilities. However, when everyone asked him where his ancient silver coins were, he hesitated and couldn't speak. "The question is, I didn't bring it today. Full of loopholes and not worthy of trust." Dark Realm. A twisted group of white humanoid figures twists and turns forward, experiencing the initial discomfort and reshaping its body shape. Wayne looked at himself half-clothed and sighed that being a human being was not easy. He does have a holy cloth suit, which can not only defend against four-element magic, but is also bulletproof, but at critical moments, he doesn't wear it for one reason or another. Just keep it naked. Chris is not an outsider anyway. Give her some eye contact in advance to avoid being shocked later. Wayne ignored the complaints of the Book of Greed and walked quickly through the Dark Realm. The strange Dark Realm does not have the concept of space up, down, left, and right. Without reference points, it is difficult to walk in a straight line. The knowledge floating in the air is pitifully small, which makes the Book of Greed very dissatisfied. After entering the door, he complained non-stop. Wayne has never seen such a scene. He compares the Dark Realm to a poor version of the Void Universe and tries his best to spread his perception to find the location of the ceremony. He is very sure that Chris is here, but there is no reference point for the specific location, and Doreen's description is not clear enough. 10 minutes later, Wayne saw a ball of light with the help of supervision. The light that cannot be scattered is limited to a specific range by invisible forces. The light is in the shape of a column, about 50 meters high, which is a style that Wayne is very familiar with. Obelisk. Wayne took a breath and thought that it was easy to get. He only knew that the obelisk slab was hidden in a corner of London. He didn't expect that the lost treasure was picked up by Orb. It's not Orb, the Ministry of Magic's collection is pretty good. This trader is really good at selling out his country. Wayne quickly approached, calling him a traitor, as if he was loyal to the Queen from the bottom of his heart. Near the obelisk, Wayne stepped onto a brick and stone ground. The flat ground was a kilometer wide, and the obelisk stood in the center. On the surrounding brick and stone ground, there were grooves crisscrossing, some curved and some straight. Looking down, It was clearly a huge and complex magic circle. Orb used some unknown method to draw out the energy in the obelisk, reorganized the earth, fire, water, and wind, and filled the grooves according to the rules, activating the magic circle. Wayne had studied magic and was no longer a novice. He was at the college level, but he had never seen this magic circle, and there was no similar one, so he could not analyze the effect of the magic circle. He didn't have time to think about it. He jumped to avoid the grooves that overflowed with energy and found Chris in front of the obelisk. The latter was suspended in mid-air, surrounded by a white halo, with a ball of platinum-colored long hair dancing in the air, and his eyes were closed as if he was in a coma. Not only Chris, but also the boys and girls adopted by Doreen were there. They were enveloped by a magic circle with a diameter of 100 meters, an energy magic circle independent of the obelisk. With the rhythm of the halo, the breath of all people was connected as one. Alchemy array. This alchemy array is more familiar to Wayne. He has studied it before. It can forcibly extract the essence of life. Because the bottom line is still there, he gave up. In the alchemy array, Chris's half-brothers and sisters became blood and flesh medicine bottles. Every time the halo rhythm moves, the essence of life is extracted, and it is purified by the alchemy array cycle and sent into Chris's body in an absorbable way. Wayne was jealous and wanted to replace her. After a little entanglement, he decided to interrupt Chris's opportunity. With Chris's personality, knowing that she became powerful by sucking blood, she would most likely want to be Jade for the rest of her life. Not good for children. Wayne stepped into the alchemy array, and the light enveloped his body, and he was judged to be the number 1 medicine bottle. The idea was good, but he always went in but never out. The entrance and exit were guarded by the Book of Greed. It was good that he did not actively absorb others, so how could he be squeezed out of essence by an alchemy array? As expected, the alchemy array judged Wayne as a medicine residue, which was not worth squeezing. The halo on his body lit up twice and then went out. "Chris, wake up, the moon is shining." Wayne jumped into the air, hugged Chris in his arms, left the alchemy array, and woke her up from her deep sleep with a collision of thoughts. Omega W gone.c. Chris's eyelashes trembled, and she slowly opened her eyes. She was cold and ruthless like a piece of ice, which stung Wayne severely. This is not the senior sister he knew. Wait, that's not entirely true. Wayne had seen Chris's temperament change drastically, and she was cold and murderous. He once suspected that the gentle and kind senior sister was pretending. Later, I tried it and found that she was not pretending. She didn't refuse such a short skirt. If she was really cold-blooded, she would have turned hostile long ago. When she turned into a cat, her personality was also a little different. So, is it because of the divine blood? The coldness in Chris's eyes gradually dissipated, as if she had just woken up from a dream, and she was surprised and said, "Wayne, why are you here?" She felt that the posture was too ambiguous, and she blushed and struggled. After landing, she saw the little Wayne who dared to show himself. She was frightened and jumped back into Wayne's arms. "Why are you not wearing clothes?" Chris whispered. "Aren't you curious about where this is?" Wayne's face was covered with black lines. It was already a certain time, and he was still entangled in whether he was wearing clothes or not. Chris was awakened by him, and seemed to have thought of something. Her face turned pale in an instant, as ugly as it could be. Doreen summoned her adopted sons and daughters and brought them here, and then the person they regarded as their mother personally sent them to the altar. In order to activate the obelisk, Doreen also let the devil devour the church members. Chris trembled violently and lowered her head to lie on Wayne's shoulder. She didn't know that she had divine blood, but she only knew that she was a sacrifice and almost died. "Don't be afraid, I will protect you." Wayne lowered his head and kissed Chris's hairline, and looked at the obelisk not far away. It was a good thing to recover it, but he didn't have the ability to take it away at the moment. He. A cold laugh came, and Wayne looked over in surprise. A blond man in the medicine bottle broke away from the alchemy array and walked out easily. His eyes were dark, and Wayne smelled the smell of the devil. "Little wizard, you can't protect anyone." The Thousand Eyes demon disdained Orb's many arrangements. Not only did he fail to defend against him, he also failed to stop a rookie wizard. "Leave the girl behind. She doesn't belong to you." "Who said that?" "I'm taking her away today." Restarting the myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 185. "I'm going to take her away today," Wayne said decisively, putting Chris down and protecting her behind him. Chris hid behind Wayne, talking impulsively, getting drunk, her heart pounding, her eyes about to water. But soon, her eyes gradually became cold, one hand wrapped around Wayne's chest and abdomen, one hand on her chest, two hands on two hearts, and the heart rate gradually became consistent. "Senior sister, what are you doing?" Wayne looked at the Thousand Eyes demon warily, and was quite puzzled by Chris's little movements. He knew that the words just now were very exciting, but now was not the time to flirt. "Calm down, there is plenty of time to go home after this battle." Chris's body bloomed with a moonlight halo, and the hazy light and shadow enveloped herself while also shrouding Wayne. A group of strange energy flowed from Chris's palm into Wayne's chest. It was the life essence that the latter desired most. It was deprived by the alchemy array, purified and injected into Chris's body, and then transferred into Wayne's body through her. In addition to the four elements of earth, fire, water, and wind, this ball of energy also contains some things that can only be understood but not expressed in words. The expulsion and devouring of the dark moon. The tolerance and tranquility of the waning moon. The life and strengthening of the new moon. The purification and balance of the full moon. The four phases of the moon represent the essence of the Moonlight Church's faith, and the complexity of the form is far more than the above concepts. The abridged version of the Book of Moon Shadows that Wayne got has detailed magic classified into categories. But the Book of Moon Shadows only records magic and summarized knowledge, which is far less simple and straightforward than the one Chris gave Wayne. According to the Book of Greed, this table of dishes is delicious and worth tasting. Awoo! It's good again. Chris gave Wayne a lot of knowledge, which is more extensive than the magic of the Golden Mage Doran. Without the realm of the legendary mage, such profound knowledge cannot be precipitated. This is indeed the case. All this knowledge comes from Orb. In order to break through his own limits and break the legendary realm and enter the realm of demigod, the latter stuffed the knowledge he mastered into the mind of the Son of God. Ordinary magicians would have gone crazy long ago, even with divine blood. In order to complete the key step, Orb transferred all the negatives to Doreen's adopted son and daughter through the alchemy array. After this wave of operations, the Moonlight Church's base in London was wiped out, and the fruit was obtained by Chris, who would be harvested by Orb later. Orb had high hopes for Chris, and firmly believed that divine blood could create miracles. He did not enter the kingdom of God, but opened up a new faith independently of all other beliefs. Because it was too difficult, Orb borrowed from Storm and Thunder to bring back the faith that had disappeared in the long river of history, and he himself became the new god of Storm and Thunder. Orb never intended to join the Moonlight Church, nor did he intend to enter the kingdom of God to pledge allegiance to the Moonlight Goddess. Doreen knew nothing, and Wayne was unable to torture the corresponding information. He only knew that the Book of Greed was very enjoyable. He controlled the Book of Greed and returned the essence of life to Chris. The amount was average, and there was no lack of this. But he accepted this knowledge with a smile. On the cover of the Book of Greed, the small eyeball representing the moonlight shines brightly, rolling over the darkness, higher than the sun, and chasing the nature above. "Let go of that girl." The Thousand Eyes demon's face changed drastically, and he waved his hand to roll out a ball of darkness and pounced on Wayne. He didn't kill her, but planned to catch her alive. The old devil, with many years of experience, with a sharp and experienced vision, saw at a glance that Chris had transferred the power to the little wizard. The power in the Son of God and in the little wizard are completely two different concepts. The Thousand Eyes demon looked down on the little wizard's body, and the blood of God was the goal of his gambling. In order to get the fresh blood of God, he came to the world in his true body and gave up all the territory of hell. It is not an exaggeration to say that he gambled everything. How could he let the little wizard become the final winner? Capture the little wizard alive and return the knowledge to the original owner. What is his, and no one can take it away. Dark energy rolled down. Hallucination, weakness, mania, distortion. Pure mental negative buff, a series of intelligence reduction for thinking. The Thousand Eyes demons tried and tested moves, which assimilated a large number of magicians and made them a part of himself. Although his strength has declined seriously, his main body was pressed to the ground by Mona and Philomena, and only a wisp of mind clone faced Wayne, but his own realm is here, and distorting thinking is his specialty. He firmly believes that he can capture the little magician with one move for his own use. The Thousand Eyes demon sneered repeatedly, just lacking a familiar, little magician, it's you. The dark fog twisted, and Wayne and Chris were nowhere to be seen. The Thousand Eyes demon waited for a moment, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared, replaced by surprise and disbelief. Where did the little magician come from, and he could actually defy the will of God? Boom! The magic frenzy exploded, the wind spread, shattered the dense black fog, and a pale body with tentacles behind it appeared in front of the Thousand Eyes demon. Faceless, wrinkled skin, proliferating tissues bulging, vertical cracks in the chest and abdomen, huge single eye emitting crazy breath. What is this? The Thousand Eyes demon was stunned. He wanted to use monster to describe the life in front of him, but when the words came to his lips, he saw a unique beauty in the monster. Especially the big eyeball, which made him drool. Isn't it a creature polluted by the starry sky, a magical life created by God? The Thousand Eyes demon muttered to himself. He was a devil who had seen big scenes. Referring to the painting style on the opposite side, it didn't look like heaven or hell, nor like the known gods. After looking for a long time, he couldn't find the source. What scenes have I not seen? I have never seen this scene before. For a moment, the Thousand Eyes demon was confused. Is there a possibility that this is his chance? Although the divine blood is good, it is complex and uncontrollable, and there is also the risk of being traced by the superiors. If there is no choice, he and Orb will not bet everything. The monster in front of them is different, mysterious, and has more potential. Thinking of this, the Thousand Eyes demon became bolder, laughed strangely, and his mind left his body and turned into a black mist and went straight to Wayne. On Wayne's side, he returned the essence of life to Chris, but the method was too rough, causing Chris to roll her eyes and faint. She was rolled up in the air by two tentacles, her long hair fell and she was motionless. The painting style was very beautiful. If you don't know, you would think that the magic girl was captured by the tentacle monster. Don't say that the blonde man occupied by the Thousand Eyes demon on the opposite side has a nose and eyes. Not to mention that he looks positive and decent, at least he is a person and can barely stand up for justice. Who is good and who is evil can be distinguished at a glance. Boom! The black fog attacked and collided with the side of the big eyeball. The two thoughts were entangled and squeezed. For a while, no one could do anything to the other. There was no energy spillage, no material decomposition, and pure thought impact. A loud noise exploded in the ears of the Thousand Eyes demon and Wayne at the same time. The Thousand Eyes demon failed to hit, and he was even more happy. His future body had more potential than expected. It's a good thing. Don't need the blood of God, just give it to Orb generously. At present, he will not let go of this opportunity. The Thousand Eyes demon drew his own thoughts and increased the intensity of the invasion of Wayne. As the strength of the two increased and the strength of the other decreased, Mona and Philomena's advantages became greater and greater, and they almost effortlessly broke up the remaining thoughts of the Thousand Eyes demon. The black worm, about a kilometer long, twisted its body unconsciously, and the magic eyes under its feet opened. The energy beam swept across. Wherever it passed, the sky was torn and the earth was divided, forcing Mona and Philomena to avoid defense. At this moment, a light and shadow broke through the space. Renata spread her wings, holding the holy spear, and rushed towards the energy beam without saying a word when she saw the Thousand Eyes demon. The angel's obsession with the devil far exceeded the two women's imagination. In their opinion, the devil's fate had run out, and there was no need to fight hard at this moment before death. Wait for this wave of counterattacks to pass and win easily. Renata would not do that, and she had to fight hard. Angels must be the most professional in dealing with devils. The two women looked at each other and thought of that person at the same time, and ran straight to the east of the ruins of the ancient city. Like a competition, speeding up again and again, determined not to let the other party rush to the front. In terms of speed alone, Mona's wings are light and fast, and Philomena riding Wayne can't catch up. She gritted her teeth and looked at the other party's back, wondering whether to stab him in the back. In front, the dark curtain blocked the road. Mona raised the holy spear, and the holy flame condensed at the tip of the spear, burning a passage with a diameter of 5 meters. Philomena followed closely behind and got out at the last moment when the passage merged. Seeing Mona standing in the air, Yao Yao sneered in his heart, panicked, and shouted to get out of the way, and then he accelerated and crashed into her. Bang! The two figures collided with each other and fell from the sky in a whirl. Damn it, are you sick? Mona climbed up with a dusty face, furious, and was about to make another hole in Philomena with the holy spear. Philomena was secretly happy, and her face was burning with anger. She scolded, "You are sick. There is such a big sky, why don't you stand anywhere else but block the road? Are you doing it on purpose? Okay, there is such a big sky, why don't you walk anywhere else but crash into me? You are obviously blind. I told you to get out of the way, but you are deaf." After arguing twice, they snorted and looked away at the same time. "Old woman, let your master/boyfriend stay away from you when you go back." X2. Philomena gathered her long silver hair around her ears, and then she noticed why Mona stopped. The three seals blocked the way, corresponding to the three kinds of faith magic: nature, sun, and moonlight. After layer by layer of identification, the door could not be opened without the corresponding three kinds of faith. Philomena had studied life magic, and was confident that this level would not be difficult for her. She glanced at Mona lightly and said in a yin and yang tone, "This is not the place you should come to. Go back to the church to sing. Remember to dress decently. There are many little boys over there. Don't lead the children astray. You are ignorant, what do you know?" Mona's forehead was bulging with blue veins. Pagans only look at people with colored eyes. The nun uniform she was wearing was produced by the Papal States. The angel said it was good. What was wrong with it? Philomena ignored it, and a silver light bloomed in her eyes. The sword opened the way and took the lead in breaking through the belief in moonlight. The key is valid and you can enter. By the way, Wayne returned the trophy, the crescent moon single-edged sword, to Philomena, indicating that his love was greater than Philomena's love for him. For love, he was unreserved and willing to give everything. The first seal was easily broken, and the two doors could not be opened afterwards. It was true that Philomena had studied life magic, but nature and the sun were in a supporting position, and her knowledge was insufficient. Her key inserted into it was equivalent to a toothpick stirring a large jar, and a small fight could not cause any big waves. Mona followed closely behind, and seeing Philomena's defeat, she covered her mouth and laughed softly, and her tea-like laughter was very harsh. The seal of the legendary wizard. Philomena stood there with a dark face. The triple seal had extremely high restrictions. Her nature and sun content were insufficient. Even if Mona was angry and promoted to a legendary wizard on the spot, she could not break in. Reverse reasoning, the legendary wizard with firm faith was not capable of arranging the triple seal, and the person who cast the spell could only be a free wizard with no moral integrity. Philomena put away her sword, silver moonlight bloomed in her eyes, black cracks rose from behind her, piercing the sky 100 meters away, and the magnificent curtain slowly opened to both sides. After the setback at the Capitol Hotel, she applied for a large number of resources from the Moonlight Church headquarters, including 4 treasures inherited by the Moonlight Church. 4 cards the size of a stone tablet, carved from heavy black stone, reflecting metallic luster. The material is unknown, and it may not be stone. Behind the stone tablet, a complex magic circle is carved, surrounding the phantom of the moonlight goddess in the center, and the front is the 4 phases of the moon: dark moon, waning moon, new moon, and full moon. The 4 cards are connected to Philomena's mind through special binding and stored in the mobile dark field, ensuring that they will not consume her mind while carrying them with her. The 4 cards are suspended in the air, surrounding the trajectory of the changing phases of the moon, and the invisible force spreads, which doubles the pressure on Mona, a pagan. Philomena didn't deliberately target Mona. She was not a legendary wizard. It was inevitable that she would have some difficulty using 4 treasures at the same time. It was inevitable that the breath would leak out. If it caused inconvenience to Mona, it didn't matter. Just assume that she did it on purpose. The moon phase cycle. The halo was like a thread, rippling the elegant and tranquil light of flowing water, moistening things silently, and brushing across the earth in an extremely gentle way. The triple seal included the moonlight seal barrier behind Philomena, which was wiped away in an instant as the moonlight flowed. Although the moonlight is beautiful, please watch it with caution. After finishing these, Philomena put away the 4 cards, touched the sweat on her forehead, and snorted coldly. The enemy is not only the devil, but also a legendary wizard. The next battle has nothing to do with your church. It's not too late to leave now. Mona snorted coldly and ignored it, holding the holy spear, and stepped into the dark realm. Intricate knowledge came from all directions, contacting thoughts, allowing Mona to hear continuous and overlapping whispers. Her eyes were dazed, and the holy marks engraved on the back of her hand lit up, helping her dispel endless temptations. Philomena captured the scene and guessed Mona's true identity, like an angel but not completely, and wrote it down. It might be a humanoid weapon newly invented by the church. She unfolded the life barrier to block the fragmentary whispers around her, looked into the distance, and with her understanding of the dark realm, she found the platform where the obelisk was located at the first time. 2 beautiful figures flapped their wings and landed on the platform successfully in a few breaths. In front of her eyes, the thoughts of the Thousand Eyes demon were all here, and the surging black fog rolled endlessly, colliding again and again. What is this? Philomena stared at the strange combination of big eyes and tentacles, and Chris, who was rolled up in the air by the tentacles, and for a moment, she couldn't tell which side was the bad guy. Anyway, there are no good people. Mona had seen Wayne's face a long time ago. The appearance of an angel was beyond the worldly aesthetics. Whether it was terrifying or ugly, it was all to deter the devil. She was not a devil, and she called this ugliness the majesty of the high and mighty. Mona carried the holy spear and wielded the burning white holy flame to attack the Thousand Eyes demon. The attribute was restrained and the lethality was amazing, forcing the Thousand Eyes demon to abandon a lot of thoughts and flee back to the body of the blonde man. With the help of the body, he was saved from being severely injured by the holy flame. It's you again. The Thousand Eyes demon gritted his teeth. He was just one step away from breaking through the defense line and getting a perfect body. A fallen nun who was played by his men could actually wash away all the filth and get the power of an angel. This was too weird. The Thousand Eyes demon knew that it was not Mona and Philomena who were too fast, but he was too slow and wasted precious time. This also proved that his guess was correct. The little wizard was lucky to have a perfect body. Wayne thought to himself that it was a dangerous situation. It was the first time he experienced possession, and he was almost entered by the Thousand Eyes demon. He was very curious, after the Thousand Eyes demon's thoughts entered his body, would the Book of Greed begin to eat, and if so, how would it eat? Because the risk was too great, and there was a real possibility of possession, he gave up the idea of letting the other party enter his body. Boss. Mona came to Wayne, holding her spear upright and straightening her back. She really wanted to call him master to declare her status, but when the words came to her lips, she obeyed Wayne's previous order after all. The master was still undercover and could not reveal his identity. Boss. You are Wayne. Philomena opened her eyes wide, unable to believe that her boyfriend looked like this. She took the initiative to find an excuse for him, and suddenly realized, I know, the devil has polluted your mind and turned you into a forgotten person. As she said that, she approached Wayne carefully, avoiding the tentacles dancing in disorder, and asked with concern, how do you feel, can you still stay rational? Wayne secretly thought that it was bad luck that Philomena saw the truth. If he didn't make up a reasonable explanation, it would be difficult to deceive her in the future. What excuse should he make? Wayne thought for 0.25 seconds, and then he started to lie. His white face split into a cross-section, and he opened his toothless mouth. It's not a big problem, it's just the devil's pollution. Give me a few minutes to rest and I can turn back to my original appearance. Philomena nodded and believed Wayne's lies. Wayne had helped her expel the pollution of the flesh and blood of the star beast before, and there was a successful case. I believe that my boyfriend will turn back to human. This one in front of me. Forget it, it's really hard to eat. Stupid woman, my mind has never polluted him. The Thousand Eyes demon sneered and said, you don't even know what he is, but you dare to believe his words. That's great. Even a devil like me would call him a devil when I see him. Philomena frowned and said unhappily, put away your tricks of sowing discord. I don't believe him, so should I believe you, the devil? The Thousand Eyes demon rolled his eyes. How come he has never met such a stupid woman before? At this time, a voice interrupted. The elf-like orb stepped out of the darkness, staring at Wayne with burning eyes, and said greedily, the blood of the original body, the descendant of God, the blood of the first ancestors, plus the blessing of the ancient gods. Wayne, your potential is better than the blood of God. X4. Ancient God. Original body. Ancestors. What are you saying? No, who are you? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 186. Introducing myself, I am Orb Windsor, Deputy Minister of Magic. Orb's elf has an extraordinary handsome appearance. He must have good looks and temperament. Look at his surname. He belongs to the Windsor royal family. Look at his status. He is a legendary mage and Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Magic. One person is inferior to 10,000 people. Standard life winner template. It's no wonder that Doreen was fascinated by him and believed whatever he said. This face could be either male or female. With a few sweet words while sprinting, no one could stand him. Wayne, I've noticed you a long time ago, but I didn't expect you to be so lucky. Orb had an elegant smile and a pretty face, full of temptation. The first time I paid attention to you was the geocentric sect incident. Plank also participated in it and defeated Marshall, who returned from the void. Orb's first attention to Wayne came from Marshall, who later became the Lord of the Void. Neither of the two legendary mages wanted to enter the kingdom of God, but they both wanted to open up a door and be independent of all faiths. Like-minded, similar people, we have had several transactions. The deputy minister of magic who suppresses the church has a secret deal with the legendary wizard of the natural church. This is very Windsor. Marshall bravely stepped into the starry sky, and Ob gave a lot of help and persuaded him to go boldly. Orb, brother, after drinking this glass of wine, you just rush forward. It doesn't matter if you fail, I will be behind you. Marshall rushed, the road was blocked, and Orb gained a lot. The second time I paid attention to you was the Dragon Heart Island incident. The blood tyrant of hell came and attracted the projection of the ancient god's will. You were at the scene. Plank also left London for a while and met you on the cruise ship. Glank is not a person who is always courteous for nothing. The old madman never does anything without any benefit. I have investigated for a long time, and today I confirmed that his ancient silver coins are in your hands. Orb leisurely recounted the process of paying attention to Wayne, from the initial understanding to the gradual attention he paid to him later. The third time, this thousand-eyed demon came to the world. Orb looked at the thousand-eyed demon and cast a caring look at the devil. Thousand-eyed demon, you haven't realized yet that he is Bruce, right? XN. There was silence in the field, and there was no sound. Wayne secretly thought it was tricky when Orb mentioned the ancient silver coins. The old fox in the Ministry of Magic was really not simple. Gangplank was already very slippery. Orb was even more thoughtful. He deserved to be the deputy minister. No one had such a brain. Mona didn't care about Orb's story. She stood guard by Wayne's side with a gun. The visitor was not malicious. As soon as she appeared, she stared at the master with lustful eyes until now. What does Ting Ting mean? This madman wants to rob the angel's body? It's so funny that you can't take it away even if I ask you to. Philomena listened carefully. She didn't know much about Wayne, and now was the best opportunity to steal her little boyfriend's secret. The original bloodline, the descendants of gods, the infinite possibilities of ancestors, the blessings of ancient gods. Words flashed by one, splicing into a broken storyline in her mind. Looking at Wayne's creative appearance, her mouth watered. It's not impossible. The goddess is on top, no matter what the price, she will bring her little boyfriend back to the goddess's arms. In the field, the thousand-eyed demon was the most affected. He murmured about Bruce and Wayne, and when he heard Orb's contemptuous laughter, he felt ashamed for a moment and felt that he was mentally retarded. No wonder Bruce suddenly disappeared. No wonder the people from the Holy See arrived so suddenly. No wonder a nun is still favored by angels after being played badly. Bruce, no, Wayne was an undercover agent and gave away all the information. Thinking of this, the thousand-eyed demon's facial features were distorted, black smoke came out of his mouth and nose, and he screamed at the top of his lungs, Bruce, you traitor, I trust you so much in vain, you betrayed your master. It's just master, I just say whatever you want and you still take it seriously. Wayne didn't bother to speak and turned to Mona, you, call the master to come and listen. Owner. Mona was decisive without any hesitation. So obedient. Wayne nodded with satisfaction and challenged the thousand-eyed demon, you see, master is just a title, no different from a shit idiot. If you think I'm calling you master, that's because you think I've always treated you as shit idiot. Master, I am not, Mona explained. Don't cause trouble. Oh. The two of them sang in harmony, telling the truth, but to the ears of the thousand-eyed demon, it was only ridicule and teasing directed at him. To rub salt into the wound, whip the corpse. The thousand-eyed demon roared angrily, as if it was about to attack. After all, he was a mature devil. He suppressed his anger and said to Obu, I was worried that someone would disrupt the situation and ruin your plan, so I lurked in the sacrifice. Now we have no conflict. The traitor can be yours, but the Son of God must stay. Give me. The pattern came up instantly. Orb nodded with a smile, waved his hand and shot out a ray of scorching sunlight, burning the thousand-eyed demon's body, leaving him with nowhere to cling to in an instant. The thousand-eyed demon wanted to change his body again, but was driven away by the magic cast by Orb. The black smoke roared helplessly and he waited for the opportunity in the distance. Orb no longer takes the thousand-eyed demon in his eyes. The premise of cooperation is that both parties get what they need. Before, Orb needed the key to the gate of hell, but now it is different. He has a better choice. The thousand-eyed demon has lost its value, and the cooperation ends here. OB continued, Wayne, I'm curious about why Planck is paying attention to you. I have also used other people to test you in the museum, but I didn't find anything special about you until now. He looked at Wayne's monster body greedily. If I'm not mistaken, you bet the infinite possibilities of the proto-body bloodline on the ancient god. You saw the appearance of the ancient god and tried to evolve into it. Mona frowned, talking nonsense, it was clearly the appearance of an angel. Philomena's eyes lit up, and she wanted to strip Wayne naked and study him immediately. Ancient god, what a terrible name. My boyfriend actually embarked on this evolutionary path. I have to admit that this is much more noble than the elves. Aware of the sights on both sides, Wayne shrugged and said helplessly, It's you, I hid so deeply, but you still found me. Ha ha ha. OB laughed triumphantly, his eyes were sinister for a moment. Your idea is good, but you are too ostentatious. Didn't Austin teach you not to expose yourself to the center of the vortex? It seems to have been said. Wayne, if I give you time, you will definitely be able to exchange your potential, but unfortunately, I don't have time, so I will fulfill your talent. Orb raised his 5 fingers, and darkness rushed down. Life force field. Mona held the holy spear in front of Wayne, and Philomena summoned the moon phase card to open the moonlight barrier to block the invasion of the life force field. The darkness turned into a huge hand that covered the sky, not afraid of the holy flame, ignoring the moon phase, and tightly enveloped the 4 people. The life force field is the strongest means of the legendary wizard, which is enough to reject the pollution of the starry sky and allow the legendary wizard to cross the void universe without being invaded by boundless knowledge. In other words, Orb can enter and exit the gate of truth freely, and his mind will not fall into madness. As for the life force field, it is itself a part of the void universe. The legendary wizard's mind moves the void, pulls down a projection, and then enriches it with what he knows and learns, and reconstructs it into a 3-dimensional space. This is the legendary wizard's own world, where they are omnipotent and no different from gods. The moon phases change in a cycle, driving away darkness and bringing light. Philomena consumed magic power to summon the holy moonlight, and then shaped it with her mind, creating a pure land in the darkness. The 4 cards are indeed the treasures inherited by the Moonlight Church. As a golden wizard, Philomena ignored the realm suppression and forcibly opened up her own domain in the world of legendary wizards. However, after all, it is an external object. She herself has not reached an equal height and cannot defeat Orb with cards. The limit is self-protection. Philomena looked at the darkness around her vigilantly. The world of legendary wizards has infinite possibilities. We will see everything in the world and some unimaginable existences. Remember, these are all false and not real. As the voice fell, Wayne lost Philomena's figure in front of him, and when he looked back, Mona was gone. He retracted his tentacles, tightened Chris behind him, looked at the center of the darkness with his big eyes, and found Orb with a bow and arrow. The heavy darkness was endless, as if a thick fog blocked the truth. The sky and earth are clearly divided, the boundless starry sky is dotted, and the Milky Way is rushing. The dazzling sun and the moon reflecting cold light occupy the center of the starry sky. Wayne stands on the earth, watching the soil under his feet rise up to the mountains, the boundless greenery spreads, and the river flows between the valleys. The towering trees are full of greenery, and the surging vitality is circulated in this new world. The sun and the moon are in the same sky. It's not impossible, but they shouldn't be so close, let alone the same size. This is not physical at all, and it doesn't make sense in mathematics. It can only be said that the artistic pursuit is very high. Wayne looked at the end of the world, thinking of Philomena's words, and he agreed for a while. The unscientific world is full of falsehoods. It's all fake, and he can't be fooled. The big eyeballs turned off the filter, and the world in front of Wayne was brand new. There is no sun and moon, no mountains and rivers, and no starry sky and greenery. Everything is fake. The dark world is lifeless, with only some rolling fog projections of nothingness and absurdity. The Book of Greed expressed its desire for these fogs, and Wayne suppressed its desire. No hurry, Orb thought he was invisible and was approaching. Wayne looked around in confusion, and found Mona and Philomena at the end of the world. The two women were fighting wits and courage with the air, and they were still at a disadvantage. You believed it even though I said it was false. You deserve to be fooled by me. Wayne complained about Philomena. He didn't think about the reason why he could see through the falsehood. The life force field of the legendary wizard was vivid. Philomena didn't have the Book of Greed, and her chest didn't grow eyeballs, so she would naturally believe it. Otherwise, if you firmly believe that it is false, you can ignore it. What is the meaning of the legendary wizard's life-threatening upgrade? Perfect body, the appearance of an ancient god, you may be the true meaning of life. Orb exclaimed, and praised him without hesitation. He knew that Wayne couldn't hear. In this world, he was God. He could control Wayne's 5 senses and 6 consciousnesses. Only when he nodded, Wayne could hear, see, and feel. I will accept your body. Orb raised his hand to grab Wayne, and there was no kriss in his eyes. What God's Son and God's blood, it was not as noble as the blood of the original body evolving towards the ancient God, especially the ancient God, which was too valuable. Swish. White light flashed, illuminating Orb's obsessed eyes. The strong death aura came, waking him up from his beautiful fantasy, and he withdrew far away when the white knight's sword approached his neck. A bloodline passed by, and Orb's arm that was blocking subconsciously fell to the ground. White light poured down, and death was everywhere. He had no time to be surprised. He was forced to retreat step by the continuous flashing sword light. He used the longbow transformed by the staff to resist, and then he could see the situation clearly. He was stunned when he saw it, Shadow Nightmare. Yes, it's Shadow Nightmare. A tentacle behind Wayne rolled up the broken arm, and the death attached to it, turning it into dry bones and rotten meat. The broken bones collapsed and turned into ashes. The white mouth on Wayne's face opened. You know so much, but you haven't thought that I am still a Death Knight. Orb's face changed drastically, and his voice suddenly became sharp. You actually got the recognition of the goddess of death. Is this also the power of the original body bloodline? It's good to know. Wayne waved his long sword to suppress, and his sword moves were open and closed, and the death rushed out, taking advantage of Orb's panic. He now looks very strange, with only a Shadow Nightmare, without the skeletonization and wearing the vest of the Death Knight, maintaining the appearance of being integrated with the Book of Greed. The big eyeball with tentacles, captured the magic girl, and chopped the elves with a sword, and the painting style was particularly mudslide. Wayne's sword moves were fierce, treating Orb as a dragon, fighting closely, and not giving the elf archer a chance to open up space. Around, groups of fog surged, shaped into various bizarre forms by Orb's thinking. There were meteors and meteorites falling from the sky. There were changes in the moon phases that set off a world-destroying flood. There were sunlight and flames that turned into roaring lions. There was also a natural forest of life that separated the sky and the earth. In this false world, Wayne held a long sword, as fast as a stream of light, and split the meteor and meteorite in half with a single miss. The death energy extinguished the meteorite flames, and the red sky was clear. Gray meteorite fragments fell to the ground, piercing the earth with a force of 10,000 kilograms, blasting out a huge meteorite crater that stretched for more than 10 miles, and the shock waves swept across, shattering the surrounding mountains. The flood caused by the moon phase covered the sky, and the knight's long sword pierced the earth. With Wayne's roar, the earth shook continuously, and the bottomless abyss with no end cracked, swallowing up the flood. The residual light flashed, the sword nets intertwined, and the flaming lion was torn into pieces. The forest that separated the sky and the earth withered and died just because of the arrival of the Death Knight, turning into soil and merging into the earth. Orb became more and more frightened as he fought. The legendary wizard's life force field was completely helpless against the opponent, and for some reason, Wayne not only saw the truth of the world, but also plundered these truths for his own use. This is unreasonable, the Death Knight does not have this ability. He. Wayne raised his sword to split the sun in front of him, and two tentacles stretched out, tearing the sun into two pieces along the dotted line with a hissing sound. Greeting Orb's incredible gaze, his arm extended several meters, flipping the Shadow Nightmare and slashing it down on his head. Orb's arm was broken, and in a hurry, his mind used mud and water to shape himself and connect a prosthesis. It was barely usable. He raised his longbow with both arms to block, and with a bang, a terrifying brute force came, pressing his palms to numbness and his arms to tremble uncontrollably. The clay prosthesis broke with a sound. Wayne let out a strange howl, and the palm holding the sword did not move. The several-meter-long arm contracted, and the body came like teleportation. His big eyes looked at Orb, emitting a crazy and lingering whisper, which made the latter dizzy and stopped thinking for a moment. Boom! Wayne swung his tentacles and kicked out at the same time, hitting Orb's head and chest and abdomen respectively. The latter was hit hard by the attack without a fixed form, coughed out a mouthful of sweet blood, flew backwards dozens of meters away, and pierced through several towering trees along the way. As soon as Orb stabilized his body, he saw two tentacles coming towards him. In a hurry, he recreated his clay arms and cast a spell to open more than 10 barriers. He was an archer, so he should keep his distance. There was no reason for him to fight with the knight in close combat. Orb pulled away and wanted to go away. His thoughts were scattered and he teleported away. In the illusory world, Orb teleported 1,000 meters, but in the eyes of the big eyeball, Orb was close at hand. Two tentacles passed through the space and jumped in front of Orb, locking his bow-holding arm and slender neck respectively. The next second, Wayne jumped out of the space with a sword in both hands. The tip of the white sword was surrounded by death, penetrating through the layers of barriers. The remaining force not only penetrated Orb's chest, but also nailed him to a big tree. Death rushed, and endless coldness was injected. The astrological robe Orb wore was rotten, and his internal organs, intestines, flesh, and skin turned gray and muddy, and his ribs and spine were clearly visible. Orb couldn't help but let out a cry of pain, opened his eyes, and thought in a line, slamming into Wayne's head. Puff! The white head exploded. He. The white flesh squirmed, mocking Orb's demented behavior. If he changed into the vest of the Death Knight, this blow might really blow his head off. Right now, you can live without a head. It doesn't matter whether there is a head or not. Orb probably knew this too. After the feint, he bought some breathing time. A crossbeam of light burst out from his chest. The huge holy spear penetrated, and the stream of light rushed to the end of the world, holy and hot, sweeping away all unclean things along the way. The big eyeball on Wayne's chest disappeared, and the front and back were transparent. The wound was horrible, leaving only the white flesh on the left and right sides connected, and he was almost broken in half. The white foam squirmed, and the big eyeball opened again. Obi had experienced too many battles in his life, including some with confused minds, but he had never seen an immortal body as outrageous as Wayne. Ancient God. Obi was so jealous that he vowed to get this body. He floated in the air, and under the repair of the crossbeam, his broken arm and empty chest and abdomen were restored to their original state. Wayne, you have the power of the ancient gods, and the shadow nightmare, I really can't do anything to you. Ob's eyes turned. The legendary wizard was not without a backup, but that was left to the Ministry of Magic. It was too wasteful to deal with the immortal body. He raised his hands high, and a necklace floated, shining and dispelling the false world. The light was so dazzling that the big eyeballs closed subconsciously. The world in front of Wayne turned on the filter, and he saw the endless and bright starry sky behind Orb. Star space. Void world, big universe. Orb opened the door of truth at the cost of a magic necklace. He laughed and threw the dark realm into the gate of truth, confronted Wayne in the starry sky, and asked with a smile, "Here, how long can your mind last?" The Book of Greed feasted. Wayne was not happy, and blinked his big eyes fiercely. He saw not only the starry sky, but also a huge black shadow that was indescribable. The Starry Sky Monster. Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 187. The Star Realm is a restricted area of life and an ocean of truth. The Aborigines are uniformly called star beasts by the magic world. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. The behemoths in the starry sky have all kinds of strange appearances and various abilities. They are almost like enlarged versions of magical beings. However, why they exist and who created them has not yet been determined. Wayne had seen a giant starry beast in the Earth Center Church before, named Blue Ridge Parasite. It was huge in size, had amazing reproductive capabilities, and could supply an unlimited supply of eggs. Weakness is fear of fire. Today I saw a giant beast in the starry sky again, and I couldn't help but sigh. It's so big. From a distance, Wayne couldn't see clearly the true appearance of the giant beast. In terms of outline, it was a long mass, resembling annelids, such as earthworms and lugworms with their tentacles removed. An earthworm, magnified countless times, broke through the space barrier, crawled out with most of its body, and moved towards his location at high speed. The wriggling worm was so huge that it perfectly satisfied Wayne's phobia of worms and giant objects. He immediately shuddered, stuffed the shadow nightmare into his body, turned around and ran away. Where can you run to? Orb turned his back to the giant beast in the starry sky. He noticed the sudden fear in his big eyes and laughed loudly. Wayne may be special, with abilities that even legendary mages have no control over, but these abilities come from his bloodline, and in essence, he is just a silver mage. The original bloodline imitated the ancient gods and opened up a new path of evolution. Orb was starving for it. Wayne was not worthy of such an excellent bloodline and should be given to him. Thinking of this, I laughed again. He did not rush to catch up with Wayne. He happily watched the other party looking for a way out. With a condescending attitude, he saw the struggle, the helplessness, the loss of fighting spirit, and the desire for life. As it should be. This is the despair that Silver Mage should feel when facing a legendary mage. Not counting the previous part, he was careless and acted rashly without finding out the details of the original body's bloodline, only to be tricked by the power of the ancient god and the Death Knight. Now he has the advantage, it's for sure. Wayne, you have mastered so many powerful abilities, but you still perform so poorly. Orb is determined to win, victory is close at hand, and he feels that his life has reached its peak. Suddenly, he noticed something ominous. The longbow in his hand flashed brightly and dimly, and the frequency became faster and faster, warning that there was danger in the surrounding area. Danger! Orb's eyes were wide open, and he didn't notice anything while radiating his senses. He is very sensible and not as arrogant as Marshall. He is extremely cautious every time he enters the star realm. Although he is greedy, he still rejects the ubiquitous knowledge. The question is, where is the danger? This problem did not bother Orb for too long. He turned around and saw the source of the danger. It was a giant starry beast with an immeasurable size, resembling a maggot, with a ferocious spiral mouthparts that expanded, and clusters of fangs spread from the mouth to the esophagus. Void worm. Orb was shocked, his whole face turned pale with fright, and he subconsciously wanted to open the door of truth and run away. Failed. The magic world has explored the star realm countless times. The main force is the legendary mages, and occasionally there are golden mages who are not afraid of death. They go on and on just to seek the truth. These mages opened the way with blood and summed up valuable experience for those who came after them. Among them is the illustration of the starry sky beast. According to the illustrated book, the void worm is a starry behemoth at the top of the food chain. It is huge in size and has amazing abilities. It has the terrifying power of solidifying space and chewing space tunnels to create wormholes. Being targeted by such a guy, the space is solidified with nowhere to escape, and it is basically hopeless. Of course, there is no way to survive at all. Since the detailed information about the void worm is described in the illustrated book, it means that someone escaped from the insect's mouth and narrowly escaped death. It is not without hope. Void worms are very greedy. If you sacrifice a teammate, no, if you run faster than your teammates, you can escape from the worm's solidified space. Orb was still in shock. He remembered the method to save his life in the illustrated book. He waved up a piece of darkness and summoned all the obelisks peacefully. The sacrificial rations were not obelisks, but the boys and girls Doreen adopted. At this time, Orb didn't care much, and the obelisk didn't bother to care. He threw down a pile of blood food according to the void worm and rushed in the direction of Wayne. As he ran, he cursed the unreliable illustrated guide in his mind. According to the experience summarized by the predecessors, although there are many starry sky beasts, the star realm is endless. As long as you don't stay for a long time, the possibility of encountering starry sky beasts is extremely low. Natives like void worms, which have no natural enemies, are very few in number, and the possibility of encountering them is even lower. Orb was furious. He had just reached the astral realm with his front feet, but had not yet stood firm on his back feet. He didn't even say a few words. Why did he encounter a void worm that was actively hunting for prey? Too bad luck. The void worm moved extremely fast, smashed into the four-sided platform, swallowed dozens of unconscious members of the Moonlight Church, squirmed a few times in its mouth, and spat out the unchanged Eud obelisk. A few snacks could not satisfy its desire, and it pursued the direction of Wayne. The space solidified, and the hunting net was spread out. This time, it wanted to have a taste of everything. It's been squatting in Wayne for a long time. The last time I chased Wayne to nibble was the last time, and I only almost tasted the sweetness. This time I won't miss anything. Ever since, Wayne was running in front, Orb was chasing after him, and finally the void worm was chasing after him. Funny to say, Wayne didn't know that he had been marked by the void worm. He only thought that the giant beast was chasing the legendary mage, and cursed Orb's family as he ran. "Don't come over here." From Wayne's point of view, Orb had to support him before he died. If he couldn't live, he wouldn't let others live. Orb didn't know either. He really thought he was a legendary mage. He was so fragrant that he attracted void worms to feast on him and run away like crazy. He was betting that he could outrun Wayne. At this time, Orb no longer cared about Wayne's body. His body was more important, and surviving was better than anything else. As for his unscrupulous traitorous behavior, it is not a big problem. Gangplank has already taken the blame. As long as all witnesses are killed, he will still be the deputy minister of magic who is loyal to the queen. There were not many witnesses, just 4, Wayne, Mona, Philomena, and Chrissy. At the front, Wayne's speed suddenly increased. He turned his limbs into tentacles, held a big eyeball on his back, and carried a magical girl on his back. He ran like the wind, a perfect miracle. Perhaps because of the style of painting, the universe should be paired with a tentacle monster. In this form, Wayne's speed is faster than flying. This frightened Orb, and he used all his strength to suck milk, fearing that Wayne would open the gap. Behind them, the void worm roared, also chasing after them. Wayne didn't just run around. He hung Orb like a kite and ran in a circle for a long distance. When he passed Mona, a tentacle wrapped around him and pulled him into the car. The stigmata ensured that Mona was not crazy, but her situation was not ideal. Her eyes were blank, she responded softly to the whispers in her ears, and she felt very good about herself. She gradually understood everything. The tentacles rolled around, and Mona was right next to Chris. Their two heads came together and bumped into each other. Close to Wayne's big eyes, the whisper in Mona's ear became much weaker, her mind was exhausted and numb, and her trembling eyelids slowly closed. Wayne walked around half a circle and finally found Philomena. The Golden Mage opened the life barrier and walked hard in the void. The Golden Mage has the right to refuse knowledge and can briefly enter the door of truth. Philomena could not hold on for long. When she saw Wayne's tentacles, she gave a tired smile to her big eyes. 3 heads come together. The tentacle monster tied up the magical girl, the royal sister, and the ant and ran all the way to an unknown destination. After rescuing the people, they didn't know where to go next. Today is different from the past. The last time the door of truth had an exit, you could leave once you found the goal. This time, Orb was in charge, and the door was sealed, leaving no possibility for Wayne to escape. I know how to leave. Philomena said casually, give me some time, I can open the door of truth through the moon phase card, and we can leave. Then why don't you do it quickly? On the tentacle, a mouth opened. It's not that easy. Philomena leaned close to the big eyeball, speaking intermittently, and said in agony, my thinking is polluted by the starry sky. It will take some time to open the door of truth, and, what is chasing us is the void worm, which solidifies space and escapes its hunting. Only within this scope can I open the door to truth. So troublesome. Damn Orb, you opened the door of truth for nothing, now you're fine, you were targeted by a monster. Wayne cursed bitterly. The Book of Greed was so satisfying. He was being chased with nowhere to escape, so he didn't want this opportunity. The astral space is too dangerous. Next time he comes in, he will be a hammer. At the rear, Orb could not catch up with Wayne, and was almost caught up by the void worm. He used his bow to guide the arrow, and used his backhand to perform a magical technique. The bright moonlight beams cast a layer of gray-white mist under the starry sky. It is neither peaceful nor holy, decadent and haggard, full of death and corruption. The pale moonlight goddess appeared phantomly, pushed her hands away, and the halo of light pulsed, erecting an indestructible barrier. Orb shot 2 more arrows, and the divine power of the 2 goddesses of the sun and nature was projected. The 3 rays of light merged, and the life barrier spread out, blocking the way of the void worm. This is his strongest defense. At this point, Wayne rushed to the edge of the broken platform. Philomena was in a daze and was shocked to leave the solidified space. She resisted her tired thoughts and summoned 4 stone tablet cards to cycle through the moon phases to forcefully open the door of truth. A loud bang. The void worm gnawed at the life barrier. Feeling that its prey was about to run away, it roared and sped up, catching up with Orb in just a few breaths. It didn't let go of the piece of fat around its mouth. Although it wasn't a main meal, it was suitable as an appetizer. Storm inhalation. Orb fell into the storm whirlpool, and fell into the mouth of the void worm. His broken robes made a hunting sound, and the flesh and blood all over his body was peeled off the bones by the strong suction force, and he screamed in pain. When life and death were in danger, he didn't think much and threw the longbow in his hand into the bottomless esophagus of the worm in a desperate move. The longbow is of extraordinary appearance and is a rare magic item that belongs to Wayne. If you take a closer look, you will find that this longbow is a treasure he lost many years ago. Buzz buzz. Dark red, pale, and pale green are mixed together, and the three color flames intersect, symbolizing the cycle of destruction and creation. The strange flames finally merge into a gray color, raising a pair of dragon wings that cover the sky and the sun, transforming into a giant dragon. Rampage within the gullet of a void worm. The gray dragon's temperature is astonishing, and it has the terrifying destructive power of distorting space. The void worm has rough skin and thick flesh. Although it has not been cooked by the flames, it still feels like it has swallowed a mouthful of charcoal fire and rolled on the spot in pain. Dark green juice is continuously secreted in the mouth. It endured the pain and continued to inhale the storm, swallowing all of Orb's bones, flesh and blood into its belly. The strong attraction seemed to have a black hole inside, and even the thoughts of the legendary wizard could not escape. As the flames were extinguished by the green juice, they were swallowed by the void worm along with the longbow fragments. After tasting a piece of pastry with a shell, the void worm was deeply dissatisfied. It was delicious, but it was too pungent. On the other side, the coveted meal of the void worm was busy squeezing into the gate of truth. Philomena desperately opened a small path, and Wayne was not very satisfied. He patted his butt and pointed at the obelisk and asked to take it away. It was impossible to take it away, and Philomena couldn't do it even if she was exhausted. Her head was dizzy, and she did whatever she was told to do. In addition, the person who made the request was her boyfriend. She didn't care whether she could bear it or not, and just did it as asked. The moon phases alternated and cycled, Philomena's mind was overloaded, and her magic power was consumed excessively. She was bleeding from her mouth and nose and passed out. The space where the Gate of Truth was located was running wild, and the obelisk fell into a black crack and disappeared. Wayne was sharp-eyed and found that the place where it fell was a blue sea. There was no time to pick it up, so he rushed into the Gate of Truth carrying 3 trophies. The dark passage closed, leaving only the void worms in a state of exasperation, spewing dark green juice to mark the place of eating. Keep squatting. If you can squat once, you can squat a second time. It can afford it, and you will definitely have a big meal next time. Full Moon Cathedral. Orb died, the dark domain disappeared, and the projected ruined ancient city disappeared. The cathedral was deserted, the light of the full moon shone in along the gorgeous colored windows, and the shadow of the statue of the moonlight goddess was clearly outlined. Big Eyeball put down the 3 beauties, teleported the shadow nightmare away as soon as possible, and the tentacles turned back into hands and feet, alerting the last enemy. Thousand Eyes Demon. Orb did not drag the Thousand Eyes Demon's mind into the astral world. The latter was still alive and ambushed in a corner around it. The result was not very good. Wayne had been posing for 5 minutes, but he didn't see the Thousand Eyes Demon. He escaped again. Wayne was upset. Over and over again, the devil's vitality was too tenacious. After confirming that there were no devils waiting for an opportunity around, Wayne ended the fusion with the Book of Greed and tore open Philomena's robe naked. Hiss. He tore off a piece of cloth and wrapped it around his waist, barely blocking the murder weapon. With a click, the space broke, and Renata carried Gunther out of the space crack. Seeing Wayne, Renata tilted her head. According to Gunther, this was her colleague, but unfortunately she had no memory, otherwise they could have communicated. "Mr. Wayne, are you okay?" Gunther asked. "Please make the dialogue a little deeper. Do I look like I'm in trouble?" Wayne snorted. He recognized Renata. She caused him a lot of trouble last time. If he hadn't been lucky and had many trump cards, he would have been swallowed by the gate of hell. The traitor in the Ministry of Magic is the Deputy Minister Orb Windsor. He opened the door of truth and was eaten by the void worm. Wayne briefly recounted the incident and shook his head, saying, "This is what bad guys do. They have an absolute advantage, but they choose to kill themselves and no one can stop them." The more Wayne thought about it, the more ridiculous it became. Orb opened the door of truth and called on the Star Beast to start a feast, but he ended up with a corpse. Behind the ridiculousness, it also shows the horror of the Star World, which must be taken as a warning. Gunther didn't think so. Orb died in the mouth of the void worm, which was just Wayne's one-sided statement and was not worth believing. The truth is that the angel killed him. That's right, that's it. Gunther was a smart man. Seeing that Wayne was unwilling to admit it and found a reason, he simply didn't point it out and asked in confusion, "Mr. Wayne, did you kill the Thousand Eyes demon?" "No, I thought he was killed by you." At this point, Wayne glanced at Renata. Renata shook her head, and Gunther said, "The Thousand Eyes is dead, his mind was completely wiped out, it wasn't us who did it." "There are still experts?" "Are you sure that the devil is dead, not running away?" Wayne said in surprise. Gunther glanced at Renata and said with certainty, "I am very sure. We are a step late, and there is nothing left of the Thousand Eyes." "I thought you did it yourself." "No." Wayne was silent for a while, and he suspected that the Thousand Eyes died at the hands of another legendary wizard of the Ministry of Magic. He analyzed the motive of the legendary wizard, and after thinking about it, killing him was the most reasonable. OB has an accomplice. This accomplice participated in the whole plan of OB, and had met with the Thousand Eyes. Seeing that OB was losing everything, he decisively killed the Thousand Eyes and erased the traces of his existence. That's not right. He hasn't entered the astral world, nor is he in the life force field. Why do you think Orb is doomed to lose? Wayne muttered to himself. The grievances and entanglements in the Ministry of Magic were too complicated. Every person was a traitor, a political enemy, and a skilled stabber. It was hard to say whether they were accomplices. So, who was it? Wayne couldn't figure it out, so he decided to leave the problem to Austin, who might know something. 10 minutes later, Yvette, the deputy minister of the Ministry of Magic, arrived late. Seeing the messy Moonlight Church stronghold, a smile rose on her lips. She put on a worried face, walked quickly to Wayne, and asked about the cause and effect. Wayne told him about the process of the deleted version, and Yvette was stunned. Orb, how could it be him? Shouldn't it be Plank? Which Plank, the director of the Red Leaf Forest Lunatic Asylum? Wayne was also shocked. I'm not familiar with him. Can you elaborate? It's better to die, so that no one will steal his ancient silver coins. Yvette asked again and again, and confirmed that Orb died in the astral world and became a meal for the void worms. Then she thanked Gunther beside her and hurriedly left to return to the Ministry of Magic. I have to go back quickly, otherwise Plank will be beaten to death. Before leaving, she whispered to Wayne, the High Priest is unconscious, and now is the best opportunity for you to show your ability. Remember, you represent the image of the Ministry of Magic, and you must let her feel the warmth of her family. After speaking, she nodded vigorously and patted Wayne's shoulder lightly. For a moment, Wayne was filled with mixed feelings. He laughed at the Pope's lack of strategy and the High Priest's lack of wisdom, and only attacked 3 ways against people, but he didn't expect that the Ministry of Magic would be in a mess after a twist of fate. Mona turned out to be himself. Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 188. The time comes at night. The twins emerged from the ruins with disgraced faces. They were too poor at math and wandered around a maze of stone passages for a long time. It took them until their magic power dissipated to get through this level. This is the result of not studying hard. If Wayne hadn't been an upright man, the high priest would have been screwed. The twins cleaned up the battlefield, awakened more than a dozen fellow Moonlight Church members, escorted Doreen into a prison, and cleaned up the mess in the stronghold. Wayne borrowed a piece of clothing, put it on, treated Philomena, and recruited the twins to take care of the high priest. If you have anything to do, let's wait until he wakes up. He is very busy now and has more important things to do. With that said, he picked up Mona and Chris, one on each shoulder, and left the library. He walked through the sewers, found the location of Landau Manor, identified himself through the magic circle, and entered the young master's exclusive villa. He put the two girls in 2 bedrooms respectively, took a shower, got a haircut, changed into a clean shirt and went to Alston's study. Austin wasn't home, and neither was Megan. It was just time for dinner, and Wayne and Veronica had dinner with their eyes wide open. Sci-fi was originally there, but suddenly felt unwell and lost her appetite, so she left. There was originally a candlestick, but Veronica pulled out the candles one by one and broke them all into 2 pieces in front of Wayne. There were roses and the vase thrown out of the window by Veronica. All in all, she advised Wayne to eat honestly and not think about things that didn't exist. Wayne shrugged. The dishonest person was clearly Veronica. She just had a meal and never had any leisure time. After the meal, Veronica hooked her fingers and asked Wayne to accompany her to do some after-dinner exercises at the eldest lady's exclusive villa. Wayne readily agreed and would give him benefits every time Veronica hooked her fingers, and this time was expected to be no exception. Unfortunately, Austin went home. "I still have business to do, so I won't mess around with you." Wayne put off his airs and patted Veronica on the shoulder. "You go back first, and I'll play with you when I'm done." "Veronica." She gritted her teeth and watched as the 2 social wastes went to the study together. She wanted to follow them, but Megan blocked the way. "Miss, the young master is discussing something very important with me. This is related to the family's future strategy. Please wait a moment." Megan was so serious that people couldn't refuse. Veronica felt bad. She leaned in to listen and found that Megan had set up a soundproof barrier. Even worse. She clenched her fists and stood aside full of resentment, waiting for the 2 social trash to come out and give her an explanation. In the study room, Austin was sitting on the sofa playing with ancient silver coins. He didn't know what he thought of, and the corners of his mouth couldn't stop rising, and he couldn't suppress it. He endured it for a day, and finally it was time to laugh wildly. On the opposite side, Wayne recounted what happened today. "I have told Deputy Minister Yvette about the situation. You must already know that Orb is a traitor and launched a series of attacks against the Moonlight Church." Austin nodded and glanced at Wayne. "I know everything I need to know, but you didn't tell Yvette why Orb attacked the Moonlight Church." Wayne frowned. "I can tell you, but you can't tell the Ministry of Magic. There is no need to hide it. The truth will be known once you find out. Even if you don't tell it, the Ministry of Magic can find out. Those legendary mages may not understand Orb's plan, but they know themselves and know that they also know what Orb needs," Austin said bluntly. Thinking that this was indeed the case, Wayne had no choice but to tell the truth about Chris possessing divine blood. Orb wanted to seize the Son of God, and he also used an obelisk. His plan was huge and his ambitions were not small. Alston narrowed his eyes slightly. "Sure enough, these legendary mages are the same in the end, even the reasons for betrayal are the same. At best, he was ambitious for freedom, but at worst, he didn't want to pay after the meal and even turn the table over." "Where is that girl? Is she at the Moonlight Church stronghold?" "No, I brought him back. It's in my bedroom." Austin was silent for a while and looked at Wayne very dissatisfied. "Sacred blood is indeed very precious. You have enough reasons to keep her by your side?" From the perspective of the head of the family, I have no reason to blame you, but it's still Veronica's father who won't approve of you having a lover outside. There is only one person, who do you look down on? Wayne lowered his eyebrows and refused to refute. It was indeed his fault to give up on something good, but there was nothing he could do about it. After all, it was his first love. Seeing that Wayne was particularly well behaved, Austin was even more unhappy and snorted, "Do you think if you don't speak, I will turn a blind eye and let you get over this matter? Will Veronica ask me in the future? Get up, will you use me as a shield and say that I acquiesce?" Seeing that Loudon was not easy to fool, Wayne stopped pretending and glanced towards the study. "I told you, Megan is different. But you have never denied that in the eyes of outsiders, she is your lover." Wayne was very curious as to how Austin did it, even if the teacher didn't beat him half to death, and his attitude towards Megan was very calm, as if he had acquiesced that his husband had a lover. There must be something to say here. Austin did not want to tell the reason, but stated his position as a father, and decisively jumped to the next topic: Orb was swallowed by the void worm. This excuse is not a good one. The legendary wizards of the Ministry of Magic are not fools. They have all entered the astral world and know how low the possibility of encountering a star beast is. Void worms are a relatively rare species, so the possibility is even lower. Almost impossible. Austin looked at Wayne curiously. The latter was wrapped in the life force field of the legendary wizard. What happened during that time? Why did Orb choose to open the door of truth when he had an absolute advantage? What method did Wayne use to force Orb to take this path? If it was a strong strength, Orb could not win and had to do it. Austin was somewhat unconvinced. "I am not lying. Orb is seeking his own death. I don't know why he opened the door of truth. Anyway, he was eaten by the void worm." "The high priest of the Moonlight Church can testify," Wayne said aggrievedly. "He has witnesses. Do you think the Ministry of Magic will believe the collusion confession?" Austin waved his hand and continued, "The specific situation will be confirmed by the legendary wizard himself. If it is really the void worm, it will definitely be found out. It is so dangerous, aren't they afraid that the void worm has not left and will be delivered directly to the door?" Wayne was surprised. "Why should the void worm stay?" "That's right." Wayne nodded. "That's the reason. You can't just sit back and wait for the worm to eat enough. Impossible, impossible. Le.jpg. Knowing that the Ministry of Magic will clear his name, Wayne immediately stopped panicking. There are witnesses and evidence, and no one can wrongly accuse him. The Moonlight Church has lost too many people. In order to shut up the Moonlight Church, the Ministry of Magic will definitely make concessions." Austin frowned and said. He could even imagine the task assigned to Wayne by the Ministry of Magic. He had seen the photo of Philomena. If you don't speak in secret, the little trashcan will definitely not be able to control himself and will die for the country while shouting the slogan of justice. Very upset, this is the heir of the Landau family, not the socialite of the Ministry of Magic. In terms of the interests of the family, Austin is happy to see this scene. He has a high priest, and Wayne also has a high priest. If the two sides cooperate, all three families will make money. But again, as a father, he doesn't want his daughter to be wronged. "You can rest assured about the high priest, I'm just playing with her." Wayne sneered again and again, and seeing Austin's face fall, he explained, "It's not that kind of play, it's very simple. To be honest, I don't like this woman very much. Really, she is so beautiful. Austin, you know us, the skin is not important, what is important is the soul, just like you and the teacher, you pursue the teacher not because she is beautiful," Wayne said righteously. "Austin, speak up. What are you talking about? I said she is not good looking, and then you tell tales." Austin smiled contemptuously, all low-level tricks, none of which were on the stage. He continued, "You said you don't like that woman, I'll believe you for once, remember your promise, don't let me down. Just wait and see. Wayne was full of confidence. Philomena was very beautiful, but she was too mean. In order to pull him back to the Moonlight Church, she used the beauty trap, and she also used her status to pressure Chris to use the beauty trap together. Although he was a little happy, but if he put Chris's feelings into it, pure love mixed with interest disputes, this plan would be very bad. Wayne had already thought about it, just CPU the high priest, wait until the other party loves him to death, and then kick him away. This is called retribution. After saving the beauty twice in a row, he felt that this was a sure thing. Wayne looked so confident that he didn't know why, which made Austin very puzzled. He didn't ask more questions, waiting for Wayne to prove himself in the future, and said about the arrangement of the Ministry of Magic today, OB is finished, and the families close to him will be strictly investigated recently. The investigation team is selecting people, and I have a great chance to join the game. Wayne's eyes lit up, and he understood what Austin meant. The old Buddha has ordered to select the imperial envoy, and the family will be confiscated soon. This job is very lucrative. Austin, do you think I can do it? Wayne asked with a shameless face. You are not a member of the Tulip family yet, and the Ministry of Magic will not consider you. Austin shook his head, paused for a moment and said, but you can participate in this matter on my behalf. Just like the previous business negotiations, you will complete the task as the heir of the family. Wayne nodded repeatedly, wishing he could rush to Ob's house and search him for tens of millions of taels of gold and silver, and hand over hundreds of thousands of them to the treasury. Don't be happy too soon. Orb's last name is Windsor. The minister has both sons and daughters. He will not give the most profitable task to the Landau family. Austin saw through Wayne's heart and said, the rewards allocated to us will not be too much. We can make money, but not a lot. Wait until the news is confirmed and you will complete the task. Wayne looked disappointed. It was not the lair of the legendary wizard, but only the affiliated family with close relationship with him. The money of these poor guys had been taken away by Orb long ago, and the remaining melons and dates were clearly sent to beggars. A pure passerby, the Queen's eating manner is too ugly. Who said that there is no money to be made without oil and water? Austin smiled and said nothing. How to make money, this is a knowledge. He would not remind Wayne, let him play freely, sum up experience and lessons to grow. He believed in the talent of the little trashcan and would not let himself down. One more thing. Orb died in the afternoon, and the Ministry of Magic held an emergency meeting. There is no rush to divide the spoils, that's all for the future. Now we have to give an explanation to the Moonlight Church. At the same time, the investigation of Orb and his accomplices cannot be left behind. Only by investigating thoroughly can we confirm the list of confiscated property. Only when the Queen makes money can everyone make money. Austin asked Wayne to stop daydreaming and said seriously, don't leave London for a while. The minister will confer you an honor as the Queen. On that day, I will arrange for you to officially become the heir of the Landau family. So soon? Wayne was surprised and put on a pure face, I thought you would delay for a while. After all, this is also related to Veronica, the engagement, you know what I mean. Austin's face darkened and he waved his hand to skip the topic. It would be better to kill him than to make him admit the engagement. Therefore, the engagement is impossible. If you can delay it, delay it. If you can't delay it, discuss it again. As for the identity of Wayne's heir, Austin had thought about it. People outside said that Wayne was his illegitimate son. He explained, but no one believed him, so he just used it as an excuse. Smart people are good at deceiving themselves. Austin knew it was impossible, but he still used this excuse to deceive himself. Speaking of accomplices, I have another clue. Wayne said, Ob's partner, the Thousand Eyes Demon, was killed. I asked, it was not done by the church. I suspect there is another traitor in the Ministry of Magic, who is hiding deeper than Orb. Austin frowned. I know, you don't have to worry about these, the Ministry of Magic will investigate, just wait for the news. Wayne frowned, too perfunctory, my life is in danger, what if the traitor finds me? The situation is complicated, everyone wants to throw dirty water on Orb, they are all busy, no one will touch you now. Austin asked Wayne to relax, they were all anxious to settle the accounts, they were all busy, and they had no time to pay attention to him. Are you sure? Wayne was skeptical. Yeah. Seeing that Austin didn't care, Wayne was very dissatisfied with his father-in-law. Just when he wanted to complain, he was interrupted by Austin. The obelisk is gone, and Orb's ancient silver coin is also lost. These two items are the property of the Ministry of Magic. To be honest, are they in your hands? Austin looked at Wayne. Wayne shook his head directly. He didn't have the ability to take the obelisk away, and he didn't even see the ancient silver coin. He didn't want to take the blame. Megan. It's better to be like this. These two items are very important. The Ministry of Magic will not give up tracking them down, Austin warned, lowered his head and played with the ancient silver coin. After Wayne got up and left the study, he took out another ancient silver coin. The things were a little hot, but there was no reason to refuse the treasure that was picked up for free. Think about other uses of the ancient silver coin. Orb desperately reminded everyone that there are many uses for the ancient silver coin. Don't stick to the form. Be bolder and everything is possible. Austin agreed with that, playing with the ancient silver coin while thinking about the possibilities. Bang! With a loud bang, the glass shattered. Austin was stunned for a moment, his face showed ecstasy, he quickly rushed to the window, and poked his head out with joy, showing his back teeth. That's great. He didn't fly today, this is the point. Time goes back to 2 minutes ago. Wayne walked out of the study and just closed the door when he was grabbed by the collar by Veronica, who was waiting. He waved to Megan, but the effect was average. The housekeeper's eyes were dull, as if she was sleepwalking. Veronica dragged Wayne to the end of the corridor, raised her fist and put it down, and raised it again as she thought about it. She wanted to ask the question in person, but her modesty and shame prevented her from speaking. She gritted her teeth and said to Wayne, "What did you two talk about? What about the future of the family? Why didn't Megan let me in? These things are too dark. Megan is doing this for your own good." Wayne patted Veronica's shoulder and smiled casually, "I'm different. You know my quality. It's easy to blend into the darkness." Veronica's face changed and she couldn't speak. "Leave it to me. You just need to be happy." Wayne put his arm around Veronica's shoulder and hugged her in his arms when she was not prepared. "Believe me, you are important. Austin wants to protect you, and I want to protect you too. It's that simple." Veronica lay in Wayne's arms, smelling the smell of social garbage, and her mind was very complicated. "By the way, the identity of my family's heir will be confirmed in a few days. You must be mentally prepared. Regarding the engagement." Bang! Wayne broke out of the window, smashed the window behind him, and flew far away. The man touched his chin in mid-air and continued, "The engagement has not been finalized yet. I know you are anxious, but don't be anxious, because I am not anxious at all." Veronica looked at the direction of the grove angrily. Passing by the door of the study, she noticed Megan's sympathetic eyes and snorted again. What is there to sympathize with? If she doesn't nod, the engagement will never be valid, and social scum will never touch her in this life. Let's talk about Wayne, covering his face and returning to the young master's exclusive villa. The swelling has not subsided, so it will be useful to keep it, and I will sell my misery at breakfast tomorrow. You acted so quickly, and I also want to tell you that the senior sister you admire is lying in my bedroom." Veronica was still irritable tonight. Wayne decided to leave her alone for a few more days. He opened the room where Mona was and looked. She was still not awake, so he went to check on Chris next door. When he entered the room, he saw the senior sister sitting by the bed, with cold eyes and very ruthless. After hearing the sound of the door opening, Chris woke up and came to him carefully, asking with concern, "Wayne, what's the matter with the wound on your face? When I was saving you, I was hit by mistake. It's a minor injury. The swelling will go away tomorrow." Wayne said it in passing, asking Chris not to take it to heart. "Liar, it was obviously Veronica who hit me." Chris knew it well and respected Wayne's lie. Just think about it, Wayne fought hard to save her, and it was a miracle that he survived. He must have been beaten a lot. This is the truth. She raised her hand to touch Wayne's cheek, her fingertips blurred the moonlight, reducing swelling and bruises, and said gently, "Does it still hurt?" "A little bit. I have a folk remedy here, it works immediately." Wayne pointed to his face and whispered to Chris. Chris nodded with a red face, stood on tiptoe and kissed Wayne on the face. "Does it still hurt?" "It has moved, and my mouth is starting to hurt." Chris smiled and gently touched Wayne's mouth. "What about now?" "No way, senior sister, are you serious?" Wayne pursed his lips, savoring the aftertaste. Seeing that Chris lowered her head and did not move, he pressed her against the wall in a fit of rage. "Head down, hands up, sweep. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Restarting the Myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 189. Chris didn't have Wayne's flexible view of love, nor did she have a first love that could be refreshed at any time. She was taken to the high speed by Wayne, and they were inseparable. They soon lost their minds and lost several strategic positions. When she came to her senses, she found herself straddling Wayne's waist, with a very indecent posture. "Wayne, W. If it were Veronica, she would have punched him a long time ago. You got the advantage and still acted cute. Chris wouldn't do that." Her face was even redder than Wayne's. Thinking of her active kiss during the lingering, her CPU burned directly, and her temperament changed drastically. She looked down at Wayne lying on his back on the bed with a cold look, as cold as a cold pond, so cold that it seemed to freeze everything around him. What is this, personality switching? Wayne recognized the state and guessed that the graduate student was like him, thin-skinned and shy, not good at expressing himself, and because he was embarrassed, he changed a personality to eat the apple. Interesting. Wayne sat up, facing the cold gaze, and kissed her lips. Her face was still the same, but her temperament changed, as if she had become a different person. As it turned out, even though she was cold, she was still embarrassed. The cold Chris left the stage within 2 minutes, and her face turned red again, which was very cute. Wayne held her in his arms and walked to the bathroom. "Rinse first, it's a mess today, and you have a lot of dust on your body. I'll help you clean it." It took 2 hours to wash. Although nothing happened, everything happened. Chris fell on the bed with a red face, and when she saw Wayne's smirking face, she lowered her head and buried her head in the pillow. "It's too bullying, how can there be this, that, and that? She is not clean." Wayne pulled her into his arms, and soothed her shyness with sweet words. He was severely suppressed by the senior sister a few times, and now both of them are not clean. This is the effect he wanted. Furthermore, after repeated verification, the owner of the delicate elastic hand was found, and the case can be closed. The blood of the gods is too precious. Those legendary wizards covet your body. Orb failed, and it is hard to guarantee that others still have ideas. Today, I let you do this and that. If you are not pure, they may not have the idea of you. Wayne said nonsense seriously. There is some truth, Doreen thought so. When she heard that Chris had suffered and worked hard, she immediately turned her face and asked for a replacement. Chris didn't understand very well, and whispered a few words on Wayne's shoulder. She expressed it very implicitly. After translation, it probably meant that since it is not clean, why not be completely unclean? I do want to, but if the purpose is clear, what is the difference between actively hurting you? I and those legendary wizards have become the same kind of people. Chris believed it deeply, and under the emotion, she kissed the corner of Wayne's mouth and asked for a kiss again. The two lingered for a while, and Wayne explained, "The high priest of your church has bad intentions. She knows that you have divine blood, and she will definitely launch a series of operations around you. No matter what she says to you, don't agree immediately. Tell me first, and then nod your head when I agree." "The high priest is very good," Chris whispered. "Only you think so?" Wayne rolled his eyes. "It is necessary to read the diary to experience the sinister nature of people. After thinking about it, forget it, and don't drag Veronica into it again." He decisively took off Philomena's hypocritical mask and said, "Remember that night, at Wayne's house, I coaxed you to sleep. What happened that night?" Chris didn't understand, lying on Wayne's chest, listening to the strong heartbeat, and couldn't help feeling a little sleepy. "Just learned new knowledge that is not in the book, learning and practicing at the same time, it is very tiring. You were not in the right state that night, and you tried to seduce me. You are not a casual girl. The high priest must have assigned you a task to do this." Wayne curled his lips. He got angry every time he thought of this. This. Chris raised his head and was no longer sleepy. He explained, "The high priest did have this idea, but she gave up at the last minute. She said you were a good person, but not necessarily a good man. She was afraid that I would suffer, so she did it herself." Wayne had a string of question marks floating across his mind. He grasped the key words accurately and hugged Chris tightly. "Don't listen to her nonsense, it's all slander. I must be a good man. Chris, talk. Even if you are a devil, I like you," Chris affirmed. "Wayne is not afraid of dying for her. What's wrong with being a little bad? She can change. She will like bad people in the future. If you hate someone, no matter how many advantages he has, you will only focus on his shortcomings. Conversely, if you like someone, no matter how many disadvantages he has, you will only focus on his advantages. This is love." Chris knew that Wayne had bad intentions and was thinking about having 3 girlfriends at the same time, but because she liked him, she put the unhappy things aside and chose to take it one step at a time. "It's not a big problem. Wayne and Veronica are siblings, destined not to be together, and Willie. Little Willie is ridiculous, so let's not talk about it." After finding these reasons, Chris firmly believed that she would win. Seeing her smile so happily, Wayne was quite puzzled, and his scalp was a little numb. "The high priest didn't ask you to use the beauty trap, then what happened to you that night? Why did you suddenly take the initiative?" Wayne felt very bad. The main reason why he used the CPU Philomena was based on Chris being bullied. Without this foundation, his series of operations would not find a moral high ground. "It's bad, I'm the scumbag." Was it originally? That's not okay. Wayne was secretly thinking about something bad, but Chris didn't notice it at all. Thinking of the heavy topic, she pulled Wayne to sit up. "Wayne, there is one thing I have thought about for a long time, and I decided to make it clear to you." After the close contact tonight, Chris felt that she was qualified to make it clear. "You are the heir of the Landau family, right? You know everything." Wayne was stunned, and suddenly he understood everything. Chris has always liked him, but for various reasons, she kept it in her heart and pretended not to know. After learning the identity of the family heir, the pressure doubled, so she took the initiative that night. The logic is meticulous and the logic is smooth. From this point of view, Philomena was indeed wronged. The unlucky high priest was a free man from beginning to end, and did nothing except being Pua. Well, I know everything. Chris nodded, held Wayne's hands with both hands, and said seriously, you and Veronica can't be together, this is wrong, in the future, you can come to me. Wayne was confused. Although he didn't know what Chris had imagined, as far as the result was concerned, he had nothing bad to lose except billions of family assets. Since you said so, then I'll nod first. Wayne blinked, doubtful, and whispered a few words in Chris's ear. Chris blushed and shook her head. The knowledge she had just learned was too profound. She didn't want to review it now. Then she thought about it and made a promise, so she started one-on-one tutoring. The teacher and student exchanged identities, Chris learned, Wayne guided. The next day, Wayne walked out of the bedroom refreshed. Pushing open Mona's door, he didn't see anyone on the bed, but heard movement in the bathroom. Mona heard the door open, looked out and saw Wayne, who changed his bathrobe into a bath towel and walked out. Wayne had finished relieving himself, facing the pressure without any pressure, and put on an angelic face, asking Mona to be reserved. The relationship between the boss and the secretary is a very pure relationship between superiors and subordinates, not a relationship between superiors and subordinates. She should not dress like this next time. Under Wayne's serious gaze, Mona slowly changed into formal clothes and received the task of placing the play. She looked aggrieved, and her eyes were a little red. Okay, I'm really scared of you. Wayne's mind transmitted that although this was his home, he was not the owner, and the task could not be settled here. After a while, the reward would be doubled. Wayne did not say which day it was, but when asked, it was that day. After a while, he let Mona go down the sewer and leave. Recently, he was too busy to manage the detective agency, so he asked Mona to take care of it and upgraded her from an ordinary employee to an office secretary. At breakfast time, Wayne did not see Veronica, and Austin and he were out early. Wayne asked the servant to send a breakfast to his villa, and wandered around the big house alone, trying to find the lost treasure in the corner. He only saw a black cat who was idle and wandering around, looking very proud and arrogant, as if patrolling his territory. Monica. Hey. Wayne squatted down and waved, calling the black cat, but the effect was average. The black cat first stood up, then turned around and ran away. The last sneak attack caused a serious psychological trauma to it, and it was still fresh in its memory. It was determined not to give Wayne a chance to stroke it. Wayne pouted, called a black car, and took Chris back to Wayne's house. On the way, he took Chris's hand and kissed her on the face when she was not prepared. Chris was frightened and pushed Wayne away and sat upright. There is a driver in the car, don't mess around. Wayne didn't care. The driver must be Austin's man. He hoped that this report would be delivered truthfully. If Austin said nothing, Wayne would take it as his acquiescence. In the future, Veronica would hold him accountable, which was what Austin asked. God's blood was precious and must be tied to his side. At tea time, Wayne was tutoring Chris in the study. That's how young lovers are. Their feelings heat up quickly. They will hug each other when they get a chance, and never waste a minute or a second. Until the phone rang, FLA answered 3 times in a row, refused twice, and only remembered that the master was at home the last time. The first 2 times were from the Moonlight Church. The high priest was looking for a tour guide. FLA didn't know anything. The last time, the call came from the Ministry of Magic. The high priest couldn't find Wayne, so he asked the Ministry of Magic to send someone to her. The Ministry of Magic's words were effective. As a diplomat designated by the minister, Wayne took Chris to the Moonlight Church base. The library was still the same library. The church inside was shabby, and the beautiful scenery of the full moon was gone. It was a post-war ruin. After this battle, the Moonlight Church suffered heavy losses in London, and almost everyone was killed by Doreen and Orb. Philomena had a headache. She had to admit that as an airborne leader, the strong dragon could not suppress the local snake. The locals were killed or injured, which was convenient for centralization, which was a good thing for her. A group of confidants were drawn from the headquarters, and the framework could be supported quickly. In addition, the Moonlight Church was attacked by Deputy Minister Orb, and the Ministry of Magic could not escape the responsibility. The word traitor was too light. The Moonlight Church could take the opportunity to ask for a lot of benefits by shouting twice more, which was a double happiness. At the same time, this was also bad news. Not only the Ministry of Magic had traitors, but also the Moonlight Church. Doreen colluded with outsiders to murder church members, and it was not whitewashed. The Ministry of Magic has enough reasons to call itself a victim. They also suffered heavy losses. The headquarters was sealed and almost wiped out. Why should the victims embarrass the victims? Both sides should take a step back and stop here. No one should hold anyone responsible. The negotiations are continuing, with repeated tugs and compromises. Philomena had just recovered from a serious injury and had no intention of getting involved in the messy political negotiations. She left it to the headquarters and let them talk to the Ministry of Magic themselves. She met Wayne in the office. The twins guarded the door and set up a soundproof barrier. At Wayne's request, Chris followed him into the office. She was obviously a disciple of the Moonlight Church, but she stood behind Wayne, which made Philomena's eyelids twitch and she was very unhappy. After the war, Wayne took Chris away directly, like a thief, making Philomena feel like an outsider. Your girlfriend is lying in bed recovering from her injuries, and you bring a little girl home. How can you be a boyfriend like this? Philomena looked at Wayne angrily, but the effect was average. She looked at Chris angrily, but the effect was outstanding, and Chris lowered her head and dared not look at her. Why did you lower your head? Why didn't you dare to look at me directly? Philomena's head felt heavy, and she felt that something terrible had happened when she was unconscious. She looked suspiciously at Wayne and Chris. High Priest, what's the matter with you inviting me here? Wayne broke the awkwardness. If you want to enjoy the beautiful scenery of London, I think it's unnecessary. Not to mention that your injury has not healed, just the current situation, the Moonlight Church needs you to work hard in many places. Philomena was furious. What high priest? There is no high priest. I said to call her Mina. She looked at Wayne unhappily and said indignantly, before, you called Mina all the time, and you were particularly emotional. Why did you change your words today? Chris covered her mouth. Wayne didn't tell her these things. Well, Wayne should have his own reasons. He represents the interests of the Ministry of Magic and has to please the High Priest. Chris turned his head and immediately found an excuse for Wayne. He knew very well that this reason was untenable and self-deception, but he couldn't help but believe it. Wayne smiled awkwardly, not knowing how to face Philomena, and the atmosphere in the field became quiet. Chris, you go out first, I will talk to Wayne alone. Philomena ordered, and after Chris left, she stood up and came to Wayne, sat on his lap, and tears flowed down. It's over. Wayne was so scared that his face turned pale. He took out a handkerchief to wipe the tears of the beauty and said with a stiff face, Mina, what happened? Were you bullied by the Ministry of Magic? Tell me and I will curse you. Don't bother me. Philomena cried with tears in her eyes. She grabbed Wayne's hand and wiped her tears with a handkerchief. You bastard, you took advantage of the hero saving the beauty to attack Chris. She is young and better than me in every way, right? That's a must. Don't talk nonsense. She is not as pretty as you, and her temperament is not as good as yours. Wayne secretly thought that it was troublesome. If he made things clear today, Philomena would be angry and the Ministry of Magic would definitely make things difficult for him. It doesn't matter if he makes things difficult. If the sky falls, there is Austin to support it, and it won't fall on his head. The key is, there is no need to drive your own people to the opposite side, or because of such a trifling feeling. There is no way, I can only continue to be a scumbag. Wayne didn't waste any words, he grabbed Philomena's chin and kissed her fiercely. The latter opened her eyes wide, her tears closed, and she gave in after 2 pushes. Wayne held the beauty in his arms and smacked his lips. Mina, you should know how I feel about you. The first time I saved the beauty was an accident, and the second time, I couldn't do it without love. To be honest, you were a little unreasonable today, which made me lose face. Philomena's eyes were blurred, she pursed her lips after hearing the words, and said dissatisfiedly, "Asshole, how are you so skilled?" She lay in Wayne's arms, suspecting that her boyfriend practiced his skills on Chris. She was obviously here first. "Why are you being unreasonable again? I thought you were skilled, and I didn't say anything." Wayne put the blame on her butt with his backhand. During the period of the strategy, he had already figured out Philomena's preferences, and he grabbed her chin and kissed her deeply again. "Bougie, Bougie. Any more questions?" "Yes." "Then continue." Wayne showed his tough side and talked to Philomena for 10 minutes to dispel her doubts. He made her heart melt with sweet words. Although there are still many doubts, they can be found out by thinking, but the High Priest by GE is too lazy to think. "Mina, I took Chris away not to guard against you. Don't I know who you are? I am guarding against the Ministry of Magic." Wayne seriously made up his mind, none of those legendary wizards is good. If I leave Chris alone, they will definitely take the opportunity to kidnap her. For the benefit of the Moonlight Church, you must protect her during this negotiation. Philomena nodded. She was ready to do so without Wayne saying anything. "Just in case," she said, "not only the Ministry of Magic, but also the Moonlight Church headquarters will have ideas. The best way is for me to accept her as a student and stimulate the power of the divine blood to make her grow as quickly as possible." While speaking, she looked at Wayne's expression and saw that the latter just nodded, so she smiled happily. Wayne nodded expressionlessly, secretly sweating for himself. It's not easy to walk on the tightrope, and it may fall at any time. If it falls, Philomena will go to the Ministry of Magic and then to Randall Manor to shout loudly. The latest joke of London. Never mind, take it one step at a time, it's not over yet. Wayne knows that he can't protect Chris with his own strength. He must drag the Moonlight Church into the water. If Philomena can train Chris to become the saint of the Moonlight Church, those legendary wizards will be more or less afraid. Wayne thought a lot, it's better to rely on himself than to rely on others, and he must improve his strength as soon as possible. Obelisk. Find the obelisk that fell into the sea, gather 2, and he can plunder the elemental fellows with confidence. What are you thinking about? Why haven't you said anything for a long time? Of course I miss you. I'll go to your house tonight. I haven't applied night cream to you for a long time. Huh, little pervert. Do you like it? Yeah. Restarting the myth. Author, Fengchao Huang. Chapter 190. Office. Wayne held Philomena and sat on the high priest's chair, cuddling closely, sweet words one after another, using the classic Pua skills of later generations, coaxing Philomena to be dizzy. His version was so advanced that Philomena had no power to resist. Wayne knew he shouldn't take this path, but now that it was over, he had no choice. If there was anything wrong with Philomena, he was willing to take responsibility until the other party got tired, woke up, and no longer wanted him to be responsible. Philomena lay on Wayne's shoulder, intoxicated by the delicious taste of love. She just wanted to pause time and stay together like this for the rest of her life. In a daze, she thought of something important. Whispered something in Wayne's ear. "Hey, are you going to become a legendary mage?" Wayne looked at Philomena in surprise. The golden mage was so difficult to deal with. The legendary mage. "No, there is no way out, we must go down. I learned a lot yesterday when I entered the door of truth." Philomena's eyes were burning, and the more she looked at Wayne, the more curious she became. "I should not be able to accept this knowledge, but because you have used your hands and feet on me, some changes have occurred in my thinking." "What changes?" "It's my turn to ask you, what exactly did you do to me?" Philomena mentioned that when Wayne took action, at the Capitol Hotel, she was contaminated by the flesh and blood of the Starry Sky Beast, and was rescued by Wayne when she was in a coma. She didn't notice anything strange at the time. It was only when she entered the Gate of Truth yesterday that she noticed a change in her thinking. Not only in her mind, but also in her body. She couldn't find the feeling that night, and she couldn't describe it clearly. "If you have to say it." At that time she gradually understood everything. This situation is very similar to that of the crazy forgotten. Philomena couldn't figure it out. It was attributed to her little boyfriend's evolutionary path, the blood of the original body and the appearance of the ancient god. This may be the reason why she was saved from madness. Philomena's description was too vague, and Wayne didn't know whether he had similar abilities. When he asked about the conditions for promotion to a legendary mage, Philomena explained them one by one, and finally said, "The key to whether I can be promoted to a legendary mage depends on you. Now is not the most appropriate time. The royal family does not allow the church within the territory to have legendary mages. I want to set a trap for them first. The church respects the agreement and will not send legendary wizards into Windsor, but if the golden wizard is promoted through hard work, the Ministry of Magic cannot go back on his words." Philomena tells her plan, completely ignoring that Wayne is from the Ministry of Magic. Wayne nodded repeatedly, praising her wisdom while sweating for himself. The ladies are not stupid, so they have to be mentally prepared in advance. At the same time, Wayne was very curious about the reason why he could help Philomena become a legendary mage, so he readily agreed. He wants to see how much more power the Book of Greed has. Wayne left the library without taking Chris, went straight to the sewer, and summoned Yulia to the outskirts of London. The sealed book has been kept by Yulia, and only her portal can find its specific location. Wayne opened the sealed book and allowed his tentacles to search for the elemental fellows. At the same time, he used induction to find the location of another obelisk. Very dazzling. Without the seal suppressed by the Ministry of Magic, this obelisk that fell into the depths of the sea shone brightly, clearly indicating its location. To the northwest of London, the specific sea area is still unclear. You will have to get closer to know. Wayne pondered for a moment. Windsor is a federal island country, mainly composed of 2 islands, facing each other across the sea. If the obelisk happened to fall between 2 islands, not too close to London, it wouldn't take long for the Ministry of Magic to retrieve it. The obelisk must be fished out and put into the sealed book as soon as possible, otherwise, he will be forced to store the obelisk in the Ministry of Magic. Thinking of those legendary wizards who ate people's food and did nothing to help others, Wayne had a headache and comforted himself that the Ministry of Magic was actually quite good. If you change it to another country, such as the one across the sea, the religious forces in the country are complicated. The last king was pushed to the guillotine. Demons in the magic world are dancing in the territory. The Ministry of Magic established to protect national interests has been divided up by several churches. It can be said that apart from Windsor and the Papal States, other countries in the God's chosen continent are not peaceful. If it was this kind of living environment, Wayne's life would only be more difficult. Not to mention collecting the lost treasures, he would be thankful that he was not locked in the basement by the priestesses and took turns painting. It's really messy outside. Wayne smoked elemental folks all afternoon and went to the library to pick up people in the evening. After sending Chris home, he drove to the manor to apply night cream to the high priest. The process is very exciting. Philomena was particularly proactive tonight, eager to learn and extremely talented. It was the same study with the same teacher, but Chris didn't learn as fast as her. Wayne wandered out of the manor. Instead of being a holy elf, he was clearly a blood-sucking goblin. If he hadn't been young, he would have dealt with it tonight. When he thought about it, he was indeed young and energetic, and Philomena was not the same age as his aunt. In this fierce battle, he met his opponent, so he could not be arrogant or discouraged, otherwise he would definitely lose. Damn it, if it wasn't for protecting Chris, how could she have taken advantage of her today, and how could she have been allowed to taste the sweetness? Wayne's hands holding the steering wheel were shaking. Thinking that he had to endure the weight and become a diplomat of the Ministry of Magic, he felt so aggrieved that the corners of his mouth rose up and he couldn't suppress it no matter how hard he tried. The high priest smells so good. The car stopped at the Wayne house, and Frau invited Wayne into the restaurant with a serious face. Without saying anything, he pushed the dining cart and served carefully prepared tonics. Wayne looked embarrassed, feeling that Fula was overthinking. He was strong and could have a few female fairies, so he didn't need fancy supplements. Who are you looking down on? However, despite Fra's thoughts, in order to take care of his mood, Wayne had to pretend that he was useful. Show off 3 bowls. Wayne quietly pushed open Chrissy's bedroom door. There was no one in the room. His eyes lit up and he went to his bedroom. Still empty. He dispersed his perception and found Chris in the study room, who was holding class notes and waiting for late students. Senior sister is so nice. Wayne pushed open the door and walked in, locked the study door directly, hugged Chris and gave her a deep kiss. Stop kissing, go to class first and make up for the 2 days of classes. Chris showed off her authority and was held on her lap by the students to make up for the lesson. She was so proud and infatuated in one class that she didn't even know what she had taught. After finally getting through to the end of get out of class, Wayne tried to cause trouble again, but Chris held his hand down. What's wrong? Are you worried? Wayne wondered, if young people don't fall in love properly, why should they think about serious things all day long? The high priest wanted to accept me as his student, and he said it was your wish. Chris pursed her lips, not looking very happy. That's what she said. Wayne's mind turned around and he immediately understood Philomena's intention. He smiled and brushed his platinum hair. Yes, that's what I meant. You are a disciple of the Moonlight Goddess. Only the church truly protects you and becomes her student, no harm done. But Chris gritted her teeth and said, the way she looks at you is wrong. It's clear, I know what she wants to do to you. You must be entangled by her if you come back so late. She was at the scene and knew that Philomena had used a honey trap and was willing to pay any price to tie Wayne to the chariot of the Moonlight Church. Chris had a lot of thoughts about how Philomena touched Wayne's hand and had a candlelight dinner in the hotel with their arms linked. No more. It's not that Chris looked down on the high priest, she really looked down on him. He was so innocent that he had never even worn a short skirt. Chris, you talk so sourly. Wayne knew what happened as soon as he heard it, and said with a straight face, I know what the high priest is thinking. Don't worry, I won't let her take advantage. As for her plan. Wayne kissed Chris, it has been successful. Because of you, I will definitely stand by the Moonlight Church. Then she. Just let her go. After a while she will give up when she sees her goal achieved. Don't even think about how old she is. She has never been in love before and it is impossible for her to be in love in the future. People like this only have the only thing in their minds. Magic and faith don't play with real feelings. It's true. Chrissy nodded, she thought so too. Be her student and don't use me to provoke her. Women are the most jealous. She may not be emotional, but for the sake of comparison, she might do something incredible. Wayne explained, I still have a mission from the Ministry of Magic, so I can't refuse her request. Once you provoke her, I will be the unlucky one, and you will be the one who suffers. Chrissy nodded first, then shook her head, that's another woman, I won't be jealous. Really or not, let me taste it and see if it's still sour. Wayne choked, savored it carefully for a while, and said to the blushing Chris, it's sour. It's obviously the resentment he has been holding in all afternoon. After being exposed, Chris snorted and looked away indifferently. Come on, class is over, go to my bedroom, I have something good to show you. Short skirt again. No skirt tonight. November 21st. In the past few days, Wayne has been walking on the wire rope and working hard, and his body fat rate has been reduced. Sci-fi was very satisfied with the students' diligence. Without unremitting exercise, they would not reap the fruits of their hard work. She warned Veronica to learn from Wayne's hard-working spirit and not be outdone. One dared to speak and the other dared to believe it, which made Wayne look silent. He had reason to suspect that Veronica was a silly girl he picked up, with no trace of Austin on her body. In fact, she was Austin's biological son, and he regained his status as heir through marriage. Today, Austin was dressed in formal attire and asked Megan to groom Wayne from top to bottom. One looked like a dog and the other sanctimonious walked into the headquarters of the Ministry of Magic side by side. The Forestry Resources Planning Bureau has many office buildings, not to mention a certain deputy minister's office building that was sealed off. The senior management has one, and Austin himself has one. The investiture ceremony is an annual event. There are external political reasons. Your situation is complicated and you cannot be awarded the honor at Buckingham Palace. The place can only be at the Ministry of Magic, Austin said. Wayne has no identity in society and only has an ID card. He is not qualified for external publicity. He was awarded the commendation because of his contribution to the Ministry of Magic. Wayne didn't care. The so-called medals were actually the Queen's own achievements. The royal family never awarded anyone any awards. The annual medal ceremony was essentially a tribute to herself. Queen, under my wise leadership, he has achieved amazing things. It has been like this in all dynasties, and it is the same wherever it is placed. The Queen's office building has an auditorium specifically for conferring honors on magicians, but first, you have to officially become the heir of the Landau family. Austin was a little unhappy. He was unhappy, but Wayne was happy and said cheerfully, Austin, you never said, how to confirm the heir of the Tulip family, and the engagement ceremony. When will the engagement ceremony be held? Let's not worry about the engagement for now, I want to pick a bad day. Austin said something and led Wayne to a large auditorium. I don't just agree to be the heir. You need the unanimous approval of the 14 Tulip families and more than half of the votes to become the heir. What if there is less than half or a tie? As long as the Queen agrees. Isn't this unnecessary taking off your pants and farting? Wayne rolled his eyes. He could think with Veronica's brain that today's voting session would definitely fail. Without him, if the Tulip family recognizes each other, the heir can be determined internally, and it doesn't matter whether there is a queen or not. You know, you still have to go through the process. Wayne followed Austin into the auditorium, which had a red carpet and floor-to-ceiling windows on one side that let in sunlight. The Windsor flag, map, and portrait of the Queen were hung on the front wall. Surrounded by 14 seats, the crests of each family are painted on the seats. Wayne came to the open space in the center of the seats and looked around. Not all the 14 families were present. Only 5 representatives came. Except for Austin from the Landau family, he only knew members from the Boswell family. Barney, Yvette of the Collins family. The former looked enthusiastic and patted his chest to tell Austin that he would vote in favor today and would not embarrass his illegitimate son. The latter just smiled at Wayne, and if nothing else happened, she would vote against it. Wayne did not know the other two representatives, and Austin had no intention of introducing them. When they noticed Wayne's gaze, both gentlemen nodded. Rupert Wilson, who comes from the Wilson family, is over 50 years old. He wears a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and is meticulously dressed. He is a very aura politician. Some time ago, the Ministry of Magic was investigating internal traitors, and Austin followed the clues and found the Wilson family. Although it was later proven that the Wilson family were not traitors, there is a saying that everything was fine until it was found out. In order to clear the suspicion of being a traitor, the Wilson family gave Austin a lot of benefits. If nothing else, Rupert was here today to vote in favor. He was severely cut by Austin and had a very bad feeling about Wayne. The last representative is from Julian, First Julian, who looks about 30 years old and looks to be the same age as Austin. The situations of the two are also very similar. Their families are small and both are engaged in business. The difference is that Austin's wife and children sleep in the woods, while First is alone. He has no wife and children, only a bunch of lovers, and the family's main industries are tobacco and lottery tickets. Perhaps because he did so many immoral things, he had many lovers but no children. To compensate, First built many orphanages in Windsor to adopt homeless children. It was a very formal orphanage. Before Chris was adopted by Doreen, she stayed in the Julian family's orphanage for 2 years. Strictly speaking, he is still Chris's benefactor. Wayne didn't know any of this, he only knew that this man's eyes were evil and he was a bit lewd. Considering the characteristics of Windsor, he suspected that he was gay. Except for the 5 representatives who were present, the remaining members of the Tulip family were absent. A crystal ball was placed on the seat, which could make a sound for voting. What age is it? The magic projector hasn't been invented yet, so it doesn't keep up with the times at all. Wayne groaned inwardly. The moderator of the voting meeting was Yvette. The legendary mage was qualified enough to take charge of the meeting. All 14 Tulip families were convinced. There was nothing for Wayne to do at the meeting. All he had to do was show up and show his face. As the spokesperson, Austin would go through the entire process. I saw Austin introducing Wayne to his colleagues with a dark face. He was a native of Lundam with a clean background. As the son-in-law of the Landau family, he had the right to inherit the family and was the next head of the family after him. Cough cough cough, XN. For a while, there was constant coughing. First covered his mouth and snickered, Rupert pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses expressionlessly, and Barney opened his mouth wide, exclaiming that he had gained so much knowledge that he could still play like this. Yvette complained and glanced at Austin. What time has it been, and you are still joking? Be serious, you are just an illegitimate child, it is not shabby to say it out loud. Austin's face turned darker, emphasizing once again Wayne's identity, having no blood relationship with him, and not being an illegitimate child. XN. There was silence in the field, everyone was shocked. Austin, if you insist on arranging Wayne's identity this way, everyone, I actually have no objection. Yvette said dryly, I understand. For the sake of the pure blood of the family, and for the sake of the family's face, the identity of the illegitimate child will not be disclosed, and Wayne will take power in the name of his father-in-law. Is it necessary? A blind person can tell that he is your son. Barney clapped his hands with joy and decided to vote no today. Austin's operation is very interesting. On the day of the Landau family's wedding to the young lady, please be sure to send him an invitation. Austin didn't bother to explain anything, just do whatever you want, as long as he knows it's not the case. For the next 5 minutes, he read out the script without any conscience, and praised Wayne wildly, focusing on the good points and praising him in various ways. Wayne, W. I like it, I like to listen, talk more. Austin couldn't continue, his brows were grim, and he threw the manuscript on the table fiercely. What a crappy copy, how could Megan write it, there is not a single truth, was it swapped by Healy? Megan said she felt very wronged, she was not familiar with Wayne, she used Austen as a template, how to write it in reverse, and rushed out such a manuscript overnight. Austen sat down panting, still a little nauseous, and his face was very bad. Yvette blinked, confirmed that he had finished speaking, cleared her throat and said, "Dear representatives, Austen Landau nominated Wayne as the heir of the Landau family. Does anyone have any objections? If not, now enter the voting stage. I have an opinion." The troublemaker came. Rupert, a politician of the Wilson family, picked up a manuscript and looked at Wayne. "According to my investigation of Mr. Wayne, he is not from Windsor, he is from Frank, and he is a very good intelligence officer." Wayne. It's over. What should come will come, and it will be exposed after all. Rupert held the document high up and looked at Austen with a smile. "Mr. Landau, what exactly do you think of recruiting a spy from an enemy country into the Tulip family? Are you also a Frank spy?"